Yes. Working well. Trustees attending remotely, I'd like to verify your presence and please turn your cameras on.
Hi, it's Trustee Powell. I'm here.
Good evening, Trustee Powell.
I'm also here.
And good evening, Student Trustee Hannah. I believe that's it, right? Online. Hope you're doing well, Student Trustee Hannah. And when it comes to a vote, please make sure your camera is on as well. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Halton Catholic District School Board on this day, Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and will also be posted on the board's YouTube channel. Trustees, in order to be recognized, please use the hand up features on Teams to be automatically placed in queue. A reminder that we have a new microphone system here in the boardroom, which is quite sensitive, and it will pick up any sound in the boardroom. So when you're called upon to have the floor, the new overhead microphone system will automatically project your voice when you speak during this meeting, and it will do that beyond that as well. Unless prompted, please refrain from speaking when it's not your turn to speak. We'll begin as usual, of course, the land acknowledgement, opening prayer, Our Father, and national anthem. And then call upon student trustee Parasaram to lead us.
So for the land acknowledgement, one of our student Senate's newest practices is to write a little reflection before doing the land acknowledgement, just to add a bit more weight to it and make it a bit more meaningful. So today I decided to write one for this board meeting. So this one's a bit more personal, but while I read it, I invite you to connect with it in your own way. So it goes, as we pause to acknowledge land, I'm reminded that these words are not just routine or tradition, but rather a moment of truth-telling and reflection. We all have our own special and unique connection to the land, and I invite you to reflect on those now. For me, the most special memories of the land I have are with my childhood friends, rollerblading around our neighborhood, playing in the small playgrounds, playing in the snow every winter, and watching the lunar eclipse in 2022. This land is my past, present, and future. And through this acknowledgement, I hope to recognize and commemorate those who cared for it before me. Each time I hear a land acknowledgement, I try to approach it with openness and really think about what it means to live, learn, and lead on land that has been cared for by Indigenous people for generations. For me, this is both grounding and humbling. It challenges me to reflect on my own role within this ongoing story of reconciliation. How I can listen more deeply, learn more intentionally, and contribute to change in ways that honor the voices and experiences of Indigenous communities. In my work as a student trustee, I hope to let that awareness guide my actions. There are decisions reflect a coming to terms with the past and a genuine commitment to reconciliation and restorative relationships. So now I'll lead us in the traditional land acknowledgement, which is Halton region as we know today, is rich in the history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the lands of the Anishinaabe to the Attawadron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, our Catholic social teachings call us in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the four directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors that walk before us, and all these wonderful elements of creation that exist, gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations for being stewards of this traditional territory. So now I'll also lead us through our opening prayer. As we progress through the month of November, we are invited to pause, to remember, and to hold space for gratitude. Today, let this prayer serve as one of those moments of reflection. In our Catholic tradition, November is a sacred time. We begin the month by celebrating All Saints' Day on November 1st, honoring the saints who have shown us what it means to live with faith. And on All Souls' Day on November 2nd, we pray for all who have passed into eternal life. This month also calls us to reflect on Remembrance Day, November 11th, when we honor the courage and sacrifice of those who have given their lives for peace, freedom, and justice. In honor of this incredibly momentous and significant time, I'd just like to take a moment to read a small excerpt from a poem I'm sure you've all heard in Flanders Fields. And this excerpt goes, "Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields." While we do not fight on a physical battlefield, we are entrusted with a different kind of torch, the responsibility to advocate for the freedom, peace, dignity, and well-being of all students. May we honor the sacrifices of others by empowering those who we lead, uplifting every voice, and creating spaces of belonging, compassion, and hope. So now I'll lead us into our Father. So, Senator Faith, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Thank you for that, student trustees. Wonderful rendition. First item is motions arising from in camera. There was one motion from the in camera session that will require a vote in this public session. I will read the motion. Resolved that the Halton Catholic District School Board appoint Claudia Stanek as an external member of the Audit Committee for a 3-year term from January the 1st, 2026 to December the 31st, 2028, with the option to be reappointed for a second term of 3 years. May I have a mover for this item? It's moved. Trustee Stewart, and seconded by Trustee Carabella. And this is a recorded vote. So we either are in favor or opposed or abstain. Trustee Carabella.
Favor.
Trustee Powell.
In favor.
Trustee Kennedy.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn Trinata.
In favor.
Trustee Kelly.
In favor.
Trustee Saunders.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee Stewart. Trustee Adele.
In favor.
Trustee Harrisram.
In favor.
Trustee Hannan.
In favor.
Unopposed, all in favor. The motion is carried. Item 2, the approval of the agenda as per bylaw 9.6. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda, and do trustees want any item removed from the consent agenda as that relates to bylaw 9.7?
Okay.
Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like item to take out of the consent agenda, item 7.1.6. Just policy III-11, hiring and promotion. And then I'd like to take out item 7.2.7, which is the memo.
7.1.6 and 7.2.7. Is that correct, Trustee Carabella?
Yes.
All right. So, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Trustee Duarte moves, seconder. Trustee Saunders. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I think that should be a recorded vote. This is a recorded vote. And that is to amend this agenda. Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Trustee Powell?
I am in favor.
Trustee Kennedy? Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chanada?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly?
In favor.
Trustee Saunders? Favor. Trustee Murphy? Favor. Trustee Duarte? Favor. Trustee Adele?
In favor.
Trustee Karasram?
Favor.
Trustee Hannah?
In favor.
Motion carries. We have our amendments to the agenda. Are there any conflicts of interest to be declared? Trustee Saunders?
Clear conflict on 7.1.6.
Wait a moment. 7.1.6 and 7.1.6 is the hiring, correct? Anyone else? Trustee Kelly?
As a declare a conflict of interest on 7.1.6 as well as 10.
Trustee Kelly, 7.1 and 7.1.6, correct?
7.1.6 and 10.1, yes,
Or 10.1,
two conflict of interest.
correct. Two of them, and I believe you put in some paperwork earlier. Thank you for that. And Trustee Saunders, thank you for yours as well. Anyone else? Trustee Carabella, your hand is up.
Sorry.
Election of chair and vice chair of the board for 25-26. We'll now proceed with the election of chair of the board for the period of November the 18th, 2025 through to the regular board meeting in November 2026. Should a vote by secret ballot become necessary this evening, student trustees will act as scrutineers while Superintendent Lofts and I tabulate the ballots. Those student trustees who are present. According to our board bylaws, nomination motion for the position of chair of the board must be duly moved and seconded and received by the secretary of the board. I will now ask for nominations to come forward. Sorry, just give me a moment. Trustee O'Hearn-Chanada.
Thank you. Through your director, I'd like to nominate Marvin Dorr for chair of the board.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I can second. It's Powell.
Steve Powell. Does Trustee Duarte accept the nomination for the position of chair of the board?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? No, oops, please. Any other nomination for chair of the board? In case anyone missed that, any other nominations? I think there's all of them there. There are no further nominations. So seeing no further nominations, may I request a mover and a seconder to close the nominations for the position of chair of the board? Seems redundant, but motion to close the nominations. Can I have someone move the following: resolve that the nominations be closed? I'll move it. Trustee Murphy
I can
and a
second.
seconder, trustee Agnew. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. The nominations are concluded. So as such, I have a vote here? I don't think so. You're done. I would say no, it was each. So trustee Duarte is declared chair of the Halton Catholic District School Board for the period November the 18th, 2025 through to the regular board meeting of November 2026. So motion now to appoint this chair. Resolved that Arvin Duarte, trustee Duarte, be appointed as chair of the Halton Catholic District School Board for the period November the 18th, 2025 through to the regular board meeting in November 2026. Need a mover for that.
I'll move it.
Trustee O'Hearn Trinata and a seconder.
I'll second.
Patrick Murphy. Trustee Murphy. All in favor of that motion? All opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Chair, do you wish to address this meeting?
Sure, thank you, Glenn. I just want to say a few words. I want to thank each and every one of the trustees for your confidence and support, your dedication to Catholic education, your commitment to serving our students and families inspire me every day in the work I do. I want to extend my gratitude to Director Lang and all our staff here for the work we do behind the scenes to make our schools a place of learning, place of faith and community. For the past few years, we have faced challenges and we have celebrated successes together. Through it all, we have remained united in our mission to provide education and nurture both academic excellence and spiritual growth. That's what makes our schools unique and makes our schools invaluable. As chair, I pledge to continue leading with transparency, with collaboration, with each and every trustee, with the director, staff, and a steadfast commitment to our Catholic values. My goal is to ensure that every decision we make reflects our shared vision for student success and our well-being. Once again, thank you all for your confidence in me. This is an incredible honor for me. I look forward to working with each one of you as we continue to strengthen Catholic education in our board and in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Duarte. We'll now proceed with the election of Vice Chair of the board for the period of November the 18th, 2025 through the regular board meeting in November 2026. Should a vote by secret ballot become necessary this evening, student trustees will act as scrutineers while Superintendent Lofts and I will tabulate the ballots. According to our bylaws, a nomination motion for the position of Vice Chair of the board must be duly moved and seconded and received by this board. Secretary of this board, I will now ask for nominations to come forward. I need a nomination at this point for Vice Chair. Brenda, sorry, Trustee Agnew.
Brenda's fine. I would like to nominate Trustee O'Hearn Renata for position of Vice Chair.
Thank you. I need a seconder. Trustee Kelly. Does Trustee O'Hearn Renata accept the nomination for the position of Vice Chair of the board?
I do.
Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Patrick.
Trustee Saunders, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Patrick Murphy.
Do I have a seconder for that?
One second.
Trustee Kennedy. Does Trustee Murphy accept the nomination for the position of Vice Chair of the Board?
I respectfully decline, but thank you very much for the nomination.
Are there any other nominations for the position of Vice Chair of the Board? Any other nominations for Vice Chair? Finally, are there any nominations for Vice Chair? So we have one nomination, that is Trustee O'Hearn Trinata. All in favor of the motion to appoint Trustee O'Hearn Trinata for the position of Vice Chair of the Board for the period of November the 18th, 2025 to the regular board meeting in 2026. All in favor?
Favor.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And with that, your friendly chair will move over
Maybe
to his
Trustee
position.
First or not would like to say a few words.
Speed.
Hold it. It's not in the script, but a very good point, Trustee Agnew.
Thank you.
Vice Chair O'Hearn Trinata, would you like to say a few words?
I would. I'd like to thank my fellow trustees. I'd like to thank my nominators, Trustee Agnew, Trustee Kelly. I appreciate the confidence that everyone has shown on me. Many of you know I've been the vice chair role for about a month now, so a very long time, but it's been an honor to step in and support the board during a period of transition. Even in the short time, I've been reminded of how important collaboration and teamwork are to the work that we do, and those are values that I hold personally very close. I'm someone who genuinely believes in working together, and if I'm elected and am elected to continue in this role, my commitment is to work closely with the chair to support him fully and to make sure we are aligned in leading the board in a positive and constructive way. I bring some helpful experience to the table. My work on the Oxta Provincial Board has given me a broader perspective on Catholic education across Ontario. And I think that insight is valuable as we navigate our own local challenges and opportunities. As many of you know, I've chaired the policy committee for several years. That experience has taught me how to run an efficient, respectful meeting and how to help a group get to good decisions together. These are the skills that I feel will assist me in the role of vice chair. At the end of the day, I care deeply about the work we do and about the relationships around this table. I am hopeful that I can continue to remove this board, and I respectfully ask and appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
John.
Thank you, Director Klein. We'll take a 5-minute recess while we just move things over. Call to order. Good evening, everyone. Once again, warm congratulations to Vice Chair Halton, our trustees, and let's begin the meeting. Our next order of business is presentations. We're item number 5.1, senior staff updates, Halton Industry Education Council, Career Center, HIC. Director Klein, please present the presentation. Please introduce the presentation.
Pardon me, Chair.
That's right.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to tip it over to Superintendent Del Sordo in a moment, but we do have a wonderful guest with us. Every board has many contextual things to share that are highlights for that board and not for other boards. One of ours is a relationship with the Halton Industry Educational Council that goes back, I think, well beyond the age of some of our trustees here, for one, and it's something that would be the envy of many other boards. So with that, I'll tip it over to Superintendent Del Sordo.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Michelle Murray, who is a great partner with us through HIAC. You may have heard in a number of presentation or reports that I've done to the board about our partnership with Halton's Industry Education Center. One of the best things about it is that it really allows us to support our kids with planning out a career for them for all pathways. We've also had an opportunity to really share resources. One of the great things that we love doing is taking our grade 7 kids to the career lab so that we can start early with them, and that they've been such a unique partnership because, for example, this Friday, all our co-op teachers will be also meeting at HIAC to see the resources we can further really pillage from as we go further on. And the government also has hired, particularly the Halton Industry Education group, to do the career conversations. So we were so thrilled to have our own schools best represented throughout the province. But I know Michelle, as we were chatting last week, I said, just do what you always do. And so please welcome Michelle Murray to our board. She really shares with you a great resource and partnership that we have with our board.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And a big appreciation shout out to both Director Klein and Superintendent Del Sordo. They are also members on our board of directors, and we so appreciate this reciprocal relationship. So thank you again for having us. My name is Michelle Murray, as mentioned, and I am the Director of Operations at HIAC. But I'm also a parent of 3 children in the Halton Catholic District School Board, so this is near and dear on a number of fronts. Just to kind of give you a bit of a sense of who we are as an organization, we can go to the next slide. We actually just turned 36 years old yesterday. And the important part there is that the Halton Catholic District School Board, the Halton District School Board, and a number of chambers of commerce locally, their education committees, started our organization 36 years ago. And at that time, it was an American model, this Industry Education Council, but there was some recognition that we really needed perhaps some extra supports within the community to better integrate those industry and education stakeholders. And 36 years later, we're still very much doing that work. Our organization is really based in kind of 3 prongs, and those focuses are really around mentorship, partnership, and workforce development. And so tonight, I just want to share a few of our upcoming events, updates, things that we're doing within the community. Happy to take questions if time permits. If not, you know where to find me by way of Superintendent Del Sordo and Director Klein. The next slide, please. And so as an organization that is now 36 years old, we've really evolved and grown over the last 3 decades. And what started as an organization of 2-3 staff, we now have over 50 staff at HIAC. And as we continue to grow, there's really 2 predominant themes within our organization. And one is really the work that we do around career development and how helping young people better identify individual value, skills, and interests, exposing them to different occupational pathways, different emerging sectors based on labor market interests. And that work is forever evolving and changing. On the other side of the equation, we do a lot of work specifically with skilled trades and apprenticeship. We have a system called apprenticesearch.com that I'll briefly mention at the end of our presentation, but that is really the catalyst for our programming. It is an online matching system between employers and job seekers in the skilled trades. And really the additional programs that we build out are really in direct relation with what we're hearing between both employers and the job seekers on apprenticesearch.com. We'll get into a little bit more detail shortly. The next slide, please. And so as Superintendent Del Sordo mentioned, for 30 plus years, Halton Catholic District School Board, it was actually one of our pilots, has been working with us on our career awareness program. And so for 30 plus years, we have been going in and working with all grade 7 students. It was previously grade 8, moved to grade 7 a number of years ago now, to really bring that extension of learning beyond the classroom to the students in Halton Catholic. And so what we do within that workshop, it's anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. Over that time frame, students have the opportunity to explore individual value, skills, and interests. They also have the opportunity to make some alignment connections to different sectors of interest based on those individual preferences. We also give them an opportunity to really start to do some research and better learn about the different occupations out there. We'll chat more in a second, but I think we can all share that there is this recognition that there's a big world out there and young people need more exposure to all opportunities to better understand themselves and where they see themselves in the future world of work. We also offer some programming that we call Beyond the Bell. And we say that because it's traditionally held outside of school hours. And so we will offer summer sessions. We will offer March break sessions. We also do work like Take Our Kids to Work Day, where we can host a number of students who may not have other opportunities to attend with their parents for that day. And really what we do is we kind of monitor the workshop offerings throughout the year to curate a list of workshops that we offer in the summers. And truthfully, I've been with the organization going on 23 years now. And in that time, it never ceases to amaze me how many students will just wander in or inquire about coming over winter break or over a March break to spend their time really digging into our resources. Next slide, please. And so as Superintendent Del Sordo mentioned, we are super excited to launch what we're calling our Ontario Career Lab Career Conversations. And so this was an announcement within the Ministry of Education in the spring of 2024 that said as of the 24-25 school year, all students in grade 9 and 10 will have the opportunity for 2 touch points of career coaching over the course of the school year. And other than the announcement, it was kind of left at that. A call for proposal came out a couple months later. This was the work we were born to do. This is the work we're super passionate about. We were incredibly fortunate to be the successful recipient. And last year was our pilot year offering this program. And so just a little bit about the program. This is really focused on bringing in folks from the community in a volunteer capacity into schools to talk about the world of work. We are very, very intentional on the representation factor, on reflecting different post-secondary pathways and not just speaking to a university pathway. We also look at individual student interests as part of that program. And we also do some alignment back to those local programs, whether they be OEAP, Specialist High Skills Major, or dual credit. You can just go to the next slide, Rosie. Thank you so much. And really what very interesting learning and really where our jumping off point started is that 39% of 15-year-olds across the world are uncertain when it comes to careers. And that's a recent stat from the OECD. And I think, post-COVID, there has been even more anxiety and more trepidation and uncertainty. And so really what we're trying to do is that extension of community to let young people know that number one, and Rosie, can we go to the next slide? I apologize. We really want to debunk a lot of the myths that young people are feeling and facing. And so a lot of the insights that we've been gathering are both A, reinforcing the importance of the work that we're doing, but B, also recognizing that there's lots of work to be done. So this is just some of the highlights from the last year and all the students that we've seen, which is about 70,000 so far. A lot of, I don't know what I want to do. And that stress that is associated with that indecision is huge. And so even just letting young people know that career paths are circuitous, that rarely are people going to fall into something, continue in that same occupation and retire at the end of it. There is lots of room for evolution, but really staying in tune with individual values, skills, and interests again. Some of the other insights we heard is, what if I choose the wrong pathway and regret it? I'm afraid I'm going to fail. What if AI takes over the world? And what if I'm not happy with my career path? So again, these conversations are never about choices. They are about planting some seeds of interest. And for us, if students work with us and they say, hey, I love that. That is wonderful. If they say, I really don't like that, maybe I don't want to work outdoors, or maybe I don't want to be traveling a lot, those are still really important insights that we encourage them to document with some resources we provide and bring them back to my blueprint. And the next slide, please. And in this large room, this slide is very small, so I will not go into great detail of reading it, but you can just kind of see the feedback that we've been getting. And I think if nothing else, it reiterates the importance of taking the stress down, as I said. Also letting students know that there are lots of people, places, networks out there for when they're ready to have these conversations. And we consider our organization a really big part of that. Next slide, please. So these are some insights that we have received with those 70,000 students that we've seen thus far. So 95% of students had greater awareness of different careers and local job opportunities. And so, we use the example of mining quite often, because if you were to ask a young person, what do you think a career in mining could look like? They're going to think pickaxe down in a mine. But do they think about the government relations, the graphic design required, working for a lobbyist firm? There are so many different occupations. And so what we try to do is kind of break out that ecosystem for young people to better understand that even from their concept of what an occupation could be, there's usually so much more associated with it. 95% of students felt more confident making decisions about their future. It's not our decision to make, but we really hope we continue to bolster that confidence. And finally, 96% of students said that they were thinking more clearly about future job opportunities because it was something a little bit more tangible, and they could hear those insights along the way. Next slide, please. Questions about career conversations, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask for questions at this point, but if anyone has any questions before we talk about apprenticesearch.com quickly.
Trustees, if you have questions, please raise your hand.
I'll save mine to the end.
Okay, great. And so finally, I just want to circle back on that technology I mentioned earlier, which is apprenticesearch.com. This system has been around for 25 plus years. We have 40 to 50,000 users across the province of Ontario. And really, the irony is that it was built out of this need, recognizing that the skilled trades pathway and apprenticeship pathway is rather fragmented. And if you don't have those people, places, networks to support you, especially for students leaving your buildings where they've had the support of the tech ed, the guidance teams at their school, and if they don't have people in their life that can help direct them, that's really where apprenticesearch.com kicks in. Can we just go to the next slide? And so, as I said, we have 25 plus years of experience. And, we get the question a lot around, well, why do you need people? Can't AI do it? Can't technology just do it? And we are very, very clear on our stance with this. This work can never be people's, because the level of individualized questions that we get from people who really need some support and answers regarding next steps is very much why we have lots of people, job coaches, employment specialists, and job developers to help these individuals. As I said earlier, and I just wanted to reinforce it, a lot of the programming that we build out as a result of what we see on apprenticesearch.com is really based on better delivering service based on the needs that we hear from both employers and job seekers. We do a number of supports for job seekers. We do things like employability skills groups. We do shortlisting of candidates for employers. We run skilled trades open houses that are open to the public and to your students. And so really, again, just recognizing the broader ecosystem of supports within the community and recognizing that there's always somebody out there to tap into, especially when we're talking about a fragmented pathway like skilled trades and apprenticeship. And I think That was my 10-minute tap dance. If anyone has any questions, my email is there. And as I said, both John and Emma are in finance.
Thank you for your presentation. I shall now open up the floor to trustees for questions or comment. Trustee Agnew.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious how we're working with our students with exceptional needs or in our life skills programs or otherwise with respect to the work that's being done here.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great question. And so I want to be clear that this program is offered to all students. I was recently having a conversation with one of our local schools around the same concept. So the way that we approach it is twofold. One, if the school decides that they want to approach it as a large group setting, we can absolutely accommodate. But we are trying to narrow down specific strategies and supports for those diverse learners. And so above and beyond kind of being in the school, we are also delivering service to all youth justice facilities, youth that are in open and closed custody, hospital settings, as well as ECPP programming overall.
Okay, so I probably need a little more detail. So with respect to, again, for students in our life skills programs or students who have exceptional learning needs, is every high school participating in this? You're talking about on a larger scale, on a smaller scale, like what are maybe one of the superintendents needs to assist here, but I'm just looking for more detail in how we're working actively with those students to help them with their career pathways.
And so I'll use the same example. And so curating a list of speakers based on student interest, ensuring that the resources and the materials are in line and they're able to get through the activities as part of the career coaching. We do work with the ECPP programs, of which, depending on the programming, we can curate and really customize programming to make sure that we're meeting the needs of students, recognizing that it is not a set list of circumstances or experiences. And so whether we're talking about students on the spectrum, or we're talking about students with physical disabilities, we are always looking to curate speakers that are in line with what they're looking for. And as far as working with the schools, so again, this program is open to all schools. We really take an individualized approach. And so we ask as part of our booking form, let's talk about your student population. Or are there certain populations that we need to be aware of? Who's going to be participating on the day? And so that's where we try and tease out some of those answers. And that's how we prepare for those students. And if we need additional facilitators on site, we can absolutely do that. And so the delivery we suggest is really a large group setting, recognizing that for some learners that is not going to work well. We can send additional facilitators in smaller group settings, one-on-one if that's preferred. So all of our resources are always curated and put forward with that lens.
Just one more quick follow, is that okay?
Yeah.
So are we currently doing that in all of our high schools right now? Are all of our high schools reaching out to employ some of these strategies with respect to our students with exceptional needs? Like, are we seeing that across the system?
And so we are at Notre Dame Secondary School tomorrow for career conversations. And as Superintendent Del Sordo mentioned, we are meeting with all of the co-op teachers this coming Friday. We have had a turnover in staff between Judy Bridges going to Allison Little. And so we're going to be securing those dates as of this week.
I think Superintendent Del Sordo, I saw your hand up there.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Trustee Agnew, I think what we're also talking about is how do we support a co-op program for our life skills kids? Okay, good.
A little bit, but I think I'm looking at the broader piece. So just trying to understand what we are actually bringing into our schools, because there's students who are outside of life skills who may be challenged with finding good employment opportunities or learning about what that looks like from a career pathway planning. So just wanting to understand how we're reaching that population of student and if we're actively doing that right now in our schools. So separate, I think, from life skills co-op was, yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Because one of the conversations we had was about accessibility and how do we make this accessible for all?
Right.
And so that is really on the radar of looking at really each school will tell us what their needs are. So if they have students that have particular needs or that we will then work with HIAC and say, okay, in this particular location, we need to set up yada, yada, and then we can work together with it. So each school does know to reach out and tell us what their student profiles are, and then we connect with HIAC and make sure that we can serve them.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, trustee Agnew. Up next, trustee Murphy, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you very much for your presentation. I manage a specialty construction business, and our biggest challenge, well, there's many, 1,000 challenges, but the business is always according. It's getting bigger, it's getting smaller based on projects being built. One of the biggest challenges is not securing the work, but it's having the output capacity to be able to satisfy when the project needs to be built. So in my opinion, it seems that there is a stigma against trades. It's almost looked as an alternative, right? In Canada, in Europe, tradespeople are professionals. They're highly recognized. They have a high status in society. In Canada, in the urban centers, I should say, in rural, maybe it's a little bit different. So how do we address it? First of all, is that an accurate statement? And how do we address that and evolve to the point? Because AI cannot replace hands. Buildings will never be built by AI. They'll assist in design and some other areas, but we will always need trades. But right now, I think there's 350,000 electricians short in the US to build data centers. So is that an accurate assessment that our society still views trades as an alternative choice, and what can we do to change that?
All great questions. I think definitely there's still an undertone, but what I will say, because we've been doing this for several decades now, is we really are seeing a bit of a shift, a pendulum swing, so to speak, with parents not supporting the choice, but not knowing how to navigate it. And so we're actually seeing more and more parents, and I think Superintendent Del Sordo is going to chime in as well. But I think collectively we have a lot of these conversations, not only at our board table, but in the broader community. We're all across the province and across Canada with apprentice search. And we do feel like the shift is happening, but we need to make sure that we are supporting those people who put their hands up and say, I really want to get into skilled trades, but they don't actually have to get steps. And so going back to your comment around necessarily having the human resources on site to make sure that you're ready for that work, I'd encourage you to register on apprenticesearch.com. It is free for job seekers and for employers. And what we'll do is we can connect you with a job developer who can better understand your company, shortlist candidates, refer certain candidates depending on what you're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Superintendent Del Sordo, you would like to chime in?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Trustee Murphy, some of the things that's happened to really challenge that mindset about skilled trades in the past 4 years, you'll notice that our data has shown we have 400% increase in our OYAP, which is the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. We're also, mark your calendars, February 28th, doing our 5th annual Skilled Trades Fair, where we bring the trades in and the kids from grade 6. So we invite all the kids from grade 6 and their parents. So we have about between 1,500 to 3,000 families come out to this career fair. It's one of the largest ones in the provinces as well. And that our principals have told us when kids go there, particularly young men and women in grade 11 particularly, they change their pathways into the skilled trades because they go in, they find out through those that are working, and this is where we connect with HIAC to really make those partnerships with the communities that are out to support our students' pathways. But then we also show them the money. And when we show them that they can have a really good quality of life following their talents and their passion, you see their parents are also the ones who support them. So we are seeing an increase. And if you look at our board data as well, the second largest student populated program after French immersion is the specialist high skills major. And that has over 1,200 kids. And you see this huge swing. So it used to be what you were thinking, absolutely. But that's what we're chipping away at to break that mindset and work with partners throughout our community to bring kids to really find out what their talents and passions are.
So that, can I ask one more question? Through you. So that brings up an interesting point. So if you looked at our high schools, the physical space attributed to skills is 10%, 15%. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Superintendent Merrick, is that something we're looking at with an eye to the future in our designs.
Thanks for that, Mike.
At 33, Mr. Chair, we actually have a pretty rigid template we have to follow for designing schools. So they give us a template and says, based on this many pupils in the school, you get this many shops and this many science classrooms and this many washrooms, all that stuff. So it's pretty rigid and it's been shrinking, not growing in the past over the years. So it, yeah, not in terms of tech spaces, but the entire, as construction costs have gone up, the entire floor plan has shrunk. So
That's something we can work with our local MPPs and try and get that loose. And I know we had Chair Duarte and myself had a conversation last week with our MPP about how they can support the trades, right? So they're great. Thank you. Great points.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. I see no other hands up. So Ms. Murray, thank you so much for coming and presenting.
Thank
Thank you for collaboration and thank you for guiding our students because career choices are so difficult today. There's so many options. It used to be easy 50 years back, just go and choose one trade. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And I
you
would
very much.
encourage all of you to register as a career coach if you would like to get out to your local schools and talk with young people, and we can share the registration link with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
With that, we shall move on to our next item is delegations. There were 6.1, there was a delegation that was declined. Trustees have been informed about this item. We shall move on to our next order of business, which is consent agenda items, number 7. I believe we have removed one item, 7.1.6, is that correct? Consent to which is the
7.2.7. Corresponding.
Okay, correct. So trustees, we have the consent agenda. Can we have it up on the screen? 7.1 is consent agenda action items. Thank you. We have removed 7.1.6 from the action items and 7.2.7 from the noted items. There will be no discussion on this item and there will be a single motion. There will be no discussions on these items. There will be one action item and I'll read the motion. Resolved that the Halton Catholic District School Board approve consent agenda items 7.1.1, 7.1.2, 7.1.3, 7.1.4, and 7.1.5 as submitted at November 18, 2025 regular board meeting. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
Vice Chair Chanada. Looking for a seconder.
I can second this one.
Trustee Agnew. I'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee Paul, how do you vote?
In favor.
Trustee Kennedy?
in favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Vice Chair Chanada?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly?
In favor.
Trustee Sanders? Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Caradella?
In favor.
Trustee Adenike?
In
Trustee Parasaram?
favor.
Trustee Hannah?
In favor.
We have 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstention, motion carries. Shall now move on to item number 10, action items, 10.1. 2024-25 draft audited financial statements. This is 10.1. Superintendent Love, please speak to this item and then I will read the motion and place it on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I'd like to acknowledge first off the finance team, in particular Adam Frost, who's here tonight, our senior manager, as well as Cheryl Dalrymple and Andrew Kaplan. Many late nights went into the preparation of these statements, so thank you all. Trustees, please find the 24-25 audited financial statements for review. I'm pleased to report that through the hard work of the system, we are presenting an operating surplus of $6.2 million. These statements were reviewed at our audit committee on November 12th and received unanimous approval to bring before trustees tonight. Adam Frost, our Senior Manager of Financial Services, will review the statements using a short presentation. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, read a motion, place the motion on the table, we'll move it and second it, and then can speak to that. Can we have the motion up here? I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that the Halton Catholic School Board approve the 2024-25 draft audited financial statements. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
Vice Chair Halton Chinara. Looking for a seconder. Trustee Agnew. Okay, Mr. Ross, can you go ahead and present?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, trustees. So I'll just go over the financial statements, and then if you have any questions, happy to answer them when I'm complete. So in terms of our fiscal year, so there are three components to our financial reporting. We have our estimates that are brought forward in June. We have our revised estimates that are brought forward in December, and then we have our financial statements as of August 31st that are being presented today for the 24-25 school year. Just as a reminder, so when we presented the 24-25 revised budget back in December of 2024, we were a compliant, balanced budget. As CFO loss indicated, we have a 6.2 million compliant surplus at the end of our financial year for 24-25. When you look at the financial statements, there are 7 components to the financial statements. The one item that I do want to highlight and just remind everyone is that our financial statements deviate from typical public sector accounting standard financial statements. And we actually present our financial statements in accordance with the Financial Administrative Act and Regulation 395/11. Basically, the major difference between public sector accounting standards and our school board financial statements is how we report our contributions for the acquisition and development of tangible capital assets. So typically, when you have a capital asset, you recognize the revenue. When you receive the funding and have completed construction of the asset, the province would like us to recognize that revenue over the life of the asset. So as we amortize the asset, we're recognizing the revenue to essentially match that amortization. So that's the sort of the one nuance between how we present and what other entities in the public sector would present. So we'll go through the statement of financial position, or essentially our balance sheet. So there are two kind of things to look at when you're looking at statement of financial position. You're looking at your current year balances and trying to understand what's included in them, and you're comparing your current year balances to the prior year balances. So I'll go through some of the highlights on ours for 24-25. So in terms of our cash balance, so we have cash of 28.2 million for fiscal 24-25. 24 million relates to the school board proper, and then 4.2 million is what relates to school generated funds as of August 31st, 2025. In terms of our accounts receivable, so our accounts receivable balance is 135.8 million. So that's a decrease of 62 million from the previous year. The vast majority of that decrease relates to our receivable from the government of Ontario. So at last financial year end, we had a receivable balance from the province of Ontario, 176.7 million. This year, we have a balance of 118.1. So what makes up the 118.1? It's laid out on the slide. 84.7 million relates to capital projects. 27.1 relates to delayed grant payments. 5.2 million is the remaining outstanding for core education funding for 24-25. And then we have some small components related to our responsible education programs and HST. So within the capital accounts receivable, there are two components. So 70.7 million of that 84.7 million balance is to debt, future debt payments that the ministry will provide to the board for capital projects that were historically built based on borrowing. And then we have a smaller. So the new process for capital funding, in which we receive funding twice a year, has a receivable balance as of year end of 6 million. Delay grant, we saw a decrease in our delay grant receivable for the current year. So we moved from 2022 and 23-24 to 27.1. So again, just a reminder for delay grant, this is the money that we're entitled to based on our funding model, but the province has assessed that we don't need from a cash flow perspective at this time and has held it back. So it is reflected as a receivable. In terms of our liabilities, so temporary borrowing has decreased 13 million to a total of 44 million. So this is temporary loans for EDC related timing shortfalls. So when we purchase land for our schools, those are EDC purchases, and typically you have to build the school and then collect the development charges from the relating community. So we have to borrow in order to purchase the land. So we've seen repayments or collections of EDCs of 18.2 million in the current year and 5.2 million in EDC eligible expenses. Largely, this is site prep costs and the interest on the short-term borrowing is what makes up the eligible costs. In terms of our accounts payable and accrued liabilities, we have a balance of 21.7, which is down almost 50 million, 49.9 million from the previous year. So there were two major drivers of that decrease. The first one being in 23-24, we were building three new schools, which resulted in significant construction invoices that were outstanding as part of year end. And we also had a $26 million labor provision for 22-23 and 23-24 that was paid in 24-25 related to collective bargaining. So we were going through our year end last year. Our elected union had not settled with the province. And as a result, we had to record a labor provision. Subsequent to August 31st, 2024, elected did settle, and that money was paid out in 24-25. And then we also had a decrease in our responsive education program grants of 5 million. So when we look at deferred revenue, our deferred revenue balance is 25.2 million, or a decrease of 2.6 million from the previous year. So there are a few items that are driving the decrease. So as part of our capital builds and capital refreshes, we drew down on our proceeds at disposition or POD deferred revenue by about 900,000. Also, we used 1.3 million in our school renewal funding. And as they changed the core education funding from the grants for student needs funding for 24-25, one of the components of that change was some of the deferred revenue that we had previously on our statement of financial position was to be taken into income in 24-25 as part of that refresh or change in funding. So we had a pickup in special education of 1.3 million as a result of this. And then as well, 500,000 for student achievement. So these decreases in deferred revenue were partially offset by an increase in unspent funding related to temporary accommodation and Indigenous education. Employee future benefits remain relatively stable, which is good news for us for 24-25, with a slight decrease of 1,000. And then long-term debt is 79.1 million. For 24-25, a decrease of 14.4 million, and that's the result of the repayment of capital debt principal balances in 24-25. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, our deferred capital contributions is 572.1 million for 24-25, an increase of 7.2 million. There is a slight variation between the amount of money that we have in for capital contributions that we recognize as revenue and the amortization of our capital assets, which is kind of displayed on this slide. So our amortization of tangible capital assets is 21.8 million for 24-25, and our amortization of DCC, so our recognizing of revenue, is 20.4 million. So we have a difference or a gap of 1.4 million. And this shortfall represents past capital projects that our board had committed to where we weren't getting funding from the province. So this is where we used our internal reserves to fund those projects. And as a result, we cover the cost of those every year. So for 24-25, we used school renewal and our funding from accumulated surplus to cover that difference. Asset retirement obligations also remain relatively flat from the prior year with an increase of 100,000 to 3.3 million. And our tangible capital assets are at 843 million for 24-25, an increase of 10.7. And note 10 kind of outlines significant changes when it comes to our tangible capital assets. So in terms of our statement of operations, so this is where we're looking at our revenue and expenses for the year. So for 24-25, we have revenues of 538.3 million compared to 515.9 million in expenses for an annual surplus of 22.4 million. And I'll kind of go into how we get from the 22.4 million to our 6.2 million compliant surplus. As there's certain things that the ministry pulls out of our surplus there from a compliance perspective, primarily being our EDC revenue and our school generated fund revenue expenses. So I'll stick to going through our revenue and our expenses compared to the prior year financial statements. There is, when you look at our statement of operations, there is the original budget as required to be presented in the financial statements as well. But given that our original budget did change when we did our revised estimates in December, I think it's probably easier to just kind of speak to the year-over-year changes. And then if anyone has any questions on the budget estimates to the current results, we can also discuss them later. So looking at our revenue, so we had 27.8 million less revenue than in the prior year financial statements. The large decrease is driven off of other provincial grants. So within our other provincial grants last year, we received retro funding for Bill 124, as well as the collective agreement labor provision. So that was reflected in other provincial grants. It wasn't incorporated into the core education funding or the GSN as it was referred to in 23-24 at the time. The 18 million in core education funding increase that we are seeing is due to the benchmarks increasing for 24-25 as a result of those increases in salaries that were incorporated into the benchmarks moving forward. So you'll see sort of a netting of some of that component, but also reminder that the retro piece went back to 2019-20. So there's multiple years that we recognize as revenue and had expenses for in 23-24, as opposed to the current year where we're just dealing with current year costs and the current year funding. In terms of other revenue, we have a decrease of 8 million related to EDCs. And then in terms of the other components of revenue, we saw a slight increase in the federal grants. And this again was a catch up of some of the funding that the federal government paid us to recognize the increase in labor costs as a result of Bill 124 and the collective agreements. And then we saw almost $1 million increase in school generated funds. We saw slightly less in interest income and an increase of 1.3 million in deferred capital contributions as we have more assets to amortize in 24, 25. So looking at our expenses from an instructional cost perspective, we had an increase of 4.3 million. The largest driver of that was related to the increased salaries and benefits triggered by the collective agreement increases, as well as we had some one-time funding for the PVPs as part of their negotiated increases to move them from 10-month to 12-month kind of payment or salary scale. So there was 2 months sort of extra funding that we received in 24-25 for the summer. So that's a one-time kind of component there. In terms of administration costs, we saw a slight decrease of 800,000 in administration costs compared to the prior year. And that's largely due to some projects that were coming to completion in 23-24 that we did not have in 24-25. The main ones being our strategic plan, the costs in 23-24 related to that, no longer needed in 24-25. And we saw a decrease in legal expenses as well. In terms of people accommodation, we had an increase of 3.8 million. So the increase was largely driven by an increase in supplies and services, some contractual fees related to snow removal and custodial costs, an increase in amortization of tangible capital assets, and those are partially offset by a decrease in our debt servicing costs. So as we pay down principal, our interest costs also go down every year related to our debt. And then the other decrease, which was significant in the prior year, is 23.1 million. And so this is where the ministry asked us to put the labor provision costs so that they could track it separately from regular salaries and benefits in the prior year. So we did not have that same cost in the current year. So that was to reflect those collective agreement settlements that happened after 23-24, but related to 22-23 and 23-24. And similar to seeing the increase in revenue for school generated funds, we saw an increase of expenses as well. So we added a slide here to sort of highlight some of our staffing. Trustees have requested this in the past. So when we look at our staffing, so salaries and benefits accounted for 80.2% of our total expenses for 24-25. When we look at our kind of classroom staff, we had a total classroom staff in 24-25 of 2,750 FTE compared to 23-24 of 2,761. So we had a decrease of roughly 11 staff. Now this is just to put some context into these numbers. So these are average numbers. Obviously there's fluctuation throughout the year. So we put on average numbers based on similar points in time as we do for enrollment. So October 31st and March 31st, and take an average of those two kind of snapshots to develop these numbers. So you'll notice that there is a decrease on the teacher line. But if you recall back in December when we brought our revised estimates, we highlighted the fact that we were in fact reducing itinerants, which fall under the teacher line in this summary, to the tune of about 19 teachers, or itinerants, as part of our budget. So that was sort of planned to see. And then there's some small increases to the other kind of support staff. So school administration, which is your principals, vice principals, and office staff at the school. So we saw an increase. That was largely due to the preparation of the new school. So principals came on board prior to the opening of those schools and 25, 26, as well as some administrative support for the schools. So that's why you're seeing an increase there. We had an increase in consultants and spec ed. So that was part of the decreasing in itinerants. We increased a couple of consultant positions in spec ed to build out 4 teams as we spoke to during the budget period. And then board administration. So the increase, we had a vacancy in finance in 23-24 that was filled in 24-25. And then the other small decreases are just due to vacancies as well. So total change in staff year over year from 23-24 to 24-25 was down 5 FTE. But overall, hopefully this provides a bit more context from our staffing perspective. Now, how did we end up with a 6.2 million operating surplus? So there are 2 kind of components, additional revenue and expense savings that make up 6.2 million surplus. Primarily, it's on the revenue side, and some of the revenue that's driving this surplus is one time. So we did have an increase in enrollment compared to our revised estimates. So this is just kind of comparing when we presented our revised estimates of balance 0 in December of 2024. This is sort of saying what changed since then. So we had an overall increase of 51.4 students in our day school. We also had an increase of 200 students for our summer school. So we are starting to see an increase in our summer school, primarily for students in grade 8 moving to grade 9, grade 9 into 10, sort of as a reach ahead strategy by students and families. So there was increased revenue driven off of that to the tune of 1.6 million. And then we saw an increase in interest income from what we had budgeted. And then the 2 one-time things to highlight is we had additional Bill 124 funding that we received in 24-25, and also kind of an increase that related to Bill 124 in terms of our school board administration fund. So those 2 things we don't expect to see in the future. The Bill 124 revenue was about 1.6 million, and the school board admin increase was about 900,000. So when you take those kind of away from 6.2 million, or within less than a 1% variance to balance. And then we saw a slight increase in facility rental income. So that was the revenue generation side. And then when we look at our expenses, so WSIB, which has been a challenge for us the last few years, we saw that come in lower than budget to the tune of about 2 million. We also saw a decrease or underspend in the school budgets of about 600,000. And then we saw lower transportation and lower in costs of about 200,000 each. So between the revenue increases and those decreases, that's where we got the 6.2 million. So in terms of allocating that 6.2 million surplus, we put it into 2 main areas. So we increased our operating reserve. We're now at 3% of our operating revenue in our operating reserve. So as a reminder to everyone, 2% is what the province wants the school boards to strive to have. So we're now exceeding that, which is good. It gives us flexibility in future years if certain things like WSID and other expenses pop up, that we have sufficient reserves to cover those costs, as well as we're replenishing our capital reserve for 24-25. And this just sort of highlights that fact. So we're moving 5 million into our operating reserve, and we're adding 1.9 million into our capital reserve. From a compliance perspective, so we are compliant as we have the $6.2 million surplus. There also were some other compliant factors that were introduced in 24-25. So that being, well, school board admin was always a compliance review that we had to do. So we're compliant with our school board admin expenses, so they're below the allowable amount by the province. When we look at the new ones, which is the facility and transportation, we are also compliant with those spending allocations. So in terms of how do we get from our $22 million financial statement surplus to the 6.2 million compliance surplus. So they take our total revenue of 538.3 million, and they reduce that by our school generated fund revenue, our EDC revenue, and our asset retirement obligation revenue that the province provides to bring our revenue down for compliance purposes to 507.6 million. And then they do something similar for expenses. So they take our 515.9 million and they reduce it by the school generated fund expenses of 14.1 million. Some committed capital projects, sinking fund interest, as well as the AR loan expenses. And then they add back this like forced savings related to employee future benefits and then interest on long-term debt to give total expenses of 501.5 million, which gets us to our $6.2 million surplus for compliance purposes. So next steps, on December 16th, we'll be bringing back our revised estimates for 25-26. Currently, the team is kind of assessing sort of the trends that we saw in last year and how we can incorporate some of that into our budget for 25-26. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Trustees, answer your questions. So so this is an action item. With 3 minutes question time, 3 minutes debate time. Okay, so trustees, if you're ready for question time, now on the floor for questions, please raise your hand. And I have a timer here. So, Trustee Sanders, you have your questions lined up. Give me a second. Give me a second. Okay, sure. Start. Please start. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I noticed when I was reviewing, you've talked about how our reserves have gone up. But what did you notice that school budgets actually went down? And quite often we hear that teachers and staff are concerned that they end up paying a lot of things out of pocket, like paper, cartridges for laser printers, school supplies. So I'm just wondering, why would we put this into reserves rather than provide this funding to our teachers? I know that's a policy issue, but is there a plan going forward? Are we looking to do this for next year?
Yeah, so
give me a second. So Trustee Sanders, let me just interject here. If staff has complaints, there's a process for staff to approach for resolution of their complaints for materials or
Staff,
you said about
parents.
Parents, okay. So we have a process for that too. So
but this is financial. I think it's worth that.
So yeah, you can go ahead and ask this question.
Yeah,
but we have processes for that.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So the way it flows to get money into our reserves, basically you have to have savings in the current year. So anytime we're seeing our classroom reserve increase, it's because we haven't spent the full budget allotment that we gave the schools for the year. So as I presented in the presentation today, we saw about 600,000 in unspent funds being underutilized over the schools. So that's driving that surplus that you see in the allocations to various reserves. But what we really are trying to do is get the schools to spend those full budgets. What we're finding that can be tricky is principals will hold back funds sort of in case of emergency. And then when we get to the summer, sometimes the things that they're hoping to purchase won't come in time for the end of August, which then pushes those expenses into the future years. So they have to make sort of tough financial decisions then. So we're really trying to promote them to spend within the year and have less sort of rainy day funds so that we're seeing them use most of it. We are kind of working on some new strategies for 24-25 in terms of things that the principals have mentioned, especially on the secondary panel when they have like large items that they know they have to address. So when you're thinking about tech costs, so replacing lifts and things. So we're working on a new strategy for that so that they're not carrying money into the future. We're kind of pooling money to deploy to the schools that need it for the current year, as opposed to seeing that money being held onto for multiple years to build up enough to purchase those items.
So that's
Second question, yeah. You had mentioned about itinerants. You went on a description of itinerants, how we had reduced our itinerants. You know, like saying our itinerants are just teachers, right? Is that they've been taking over their role? So how would that impact our teaching numbers? I've seen that they were coming down. So if you can just give me an idea what that.
Yeah. So the slide that I presented today incorporates sort of all elective staff as teachers. And included in the teachers line are itinerants. So they're not classroom teachers, but they're still teachers. So we've been reducing the number of itinerants as we try different strategies in the different departments for the board. So that's what we were driving. So we made a decision in 24-25 to reduce some of our special education itinerants and have more like teams, which we deployed in 24-25. So that 19 decrease in teachers was because we removed itinerants. So it didn't actually impact the number of classroom teachers. We actually saw classroom teachers increase on the secondary panel, slightly decrease because of enrollment changes in the elementary panel.
Thank you, Trustee Saunders.
Do we just know offhand how many itinerants we still have?
Yes. So for 24-25, we had 26 itinerants.
That was board wide.
Yes.
What about consultants and what do you call them, coordinators? Any idea?
Yeah. So consultants, they were on the slide. So we had 27 consultants for 24-25.
And what coordinators is that?
They're pulled together.
Do I have a few more minutes?
Yeah, you have time. Go ahead. Please address your questions to the chair, please.
Physical. I just wanted to ask, sorry, we had mentioned, sorry, and I apologize. You had said that our provincial grants had gone down and then there were other grants. Other grants were related to Bill 124. What was the provincial grant size? I know they went down 40 million. So can you just sort of reiterate what they were?
Yeah. So pretty much the vast majority of that was related to Bill 124. So in terms of our other provincial ratings, sorry, bear with me here. So we had a decrease of about 39 million related to Bill 124 on the collective agreement provision retro funding. And then we had a decrease of 2 million for de-streaming and transition to high school funding. But then we saw an increase related to the PVP transition funding of 3 million. And then the retro funding that we received in the current year for 1.6 million.
You get this, Mr. Saunders, go ahead.
Yeah, just while I was doing, I noticed that in comparison, we had, it looks like there was an accrual for about 26 million at the end of last year. And do these also represent accruals? Was this funding that was given to us that we then flowed through, or how did this hit the balance sheet?
Yeah, so Through you, Mr. Chair, at year end last year, in anticipation of the province settling with our teachers union, the province had us record what we thought our expense would be based on the percentage increases that they were planning to settle for the 22-23 and the 23-24 fiscal years. And then they told us to follow your same practices for your non-union increases, which we mirror what the teachers settle for non-union. So that represents the 26 million. So it's for those 2 years of 22-23 and 23-24. The province then provided us with a responsive education program funding so that other provincial funding to reflect that. So basically we put in, this is what our expenses are, and then we put in the revenue, this is what the revenue is we need to cover those costs. So last year in our financial statements, our revenue was higher by this 26.1 million for these retros, and our expenses were higher by the 26 million in retros. But that expense sat as a liability and not a reduction in cash because we haven't physically paid out the money as of August 31st. So when we paid out the money in 24-25, we removed the liability.
But yep, just another quick concern, and this is a reference to, I guess, page 96, note 14, expenses. And I just sort of noticed that our salary and wages, our actuals reduced from last year to this year. Our benefits reduced from last year to this year. And just is this, did we have fewer teachers, or because I would have expected that if we're flowing through these changes through and got accruals and stuff, what exactly happened there to develop that?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair. So when we look at salaries and salaries from last year to this year, so that 26 million that I spoke to, as well as the Bill 124 retros that we paid in 23-24 for 2019-20 all the way to 21-22. Those all showed up in our expenses last year, and we had revenue to offset those increase in expenses. For our 25 year, we didn't have those costs in our expenses. So this is just the increase in salaries and wages for this year. But when you're looking at that, you're getting that cumulative kind of increase. So you're not only getting the grid rate increases that we paid in those retros, but then you're also getting the current year increase to make that expense what it is. And then in terms of employee benefits, that's largely due to WSIP being lower in 25 compared to 2024. So our WSIP expenses show up in employee benefits line.
No, go ahead. You have time. It's 45 seconds.
I noticed that our contingent liabilities, and I sort of made some notes here that said they've gone up. I'm just wondering if you can sort of give me an idea, what do we have in contingent liabilities? Is it just legal fees or legal issues, or why would they go up? And it just gives me an idea what we do in there.
Yeah, so in terms of our contingent liabilities, typically it's for things that our lawyers have suggested that there could be a likelihood of a future payout. And so we incorporate that in our liabilities at year end, and then it's required no disclosure highlighting the fact that there are contingent liabilities in there, but obviously we don't highlight how much they are, because then that kind of weakens our stance from a negotiation perspective.
Dr. Saunders, you still have.
Thanks. That's it for me.
Thank you, Dr. Saunders. We have a speakers list. Up next, Trustee Caravella, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I really like this presentation and this format that you have prepared for us. Is there a way that we could have had it before this meeting tonight?
Yes, we probably should have sent that out in advance.
Is it possible to have it emailed to us?
Yeah, we can send it. Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Caravella.
Yeah, and so on the one panel here, it talked about lower transportation costs and lower admin costs. Can you give an example of how our transportation was lowered?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not the transportation expert. So our transportation costs are kind of incurred by our HSTS partner.
Right.
So they provide us with what they foresee the cost to be for the year, and we incorporate that into our budget. And then when we got the final financial results from HSTS, their costs were lower than what they had budgeted. When we were looking at it, it looks like it was driven by transportation costs for to and from school. So there are other items that make up HSTS's budget, but that's where we saw the 200,000 variance. And it's just that they, I guess, had some savings in terms of costs that they thought they would have for transportation of our students to and from school.
Go ahead, Trustee Caravella.
So just, I'm thinking that when you get that and you realize you have a surplus with that, it just gets packaged where, like, can it be used again in busing? Is it meant just for busing that could relieve busing costs elsewhere or?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, presumably when HSTS is formulating their next year's budget, they may factor in that in terms of our financial statements, there really is like not a sig. We don't really control it, so it's more up to HSTS to determine how to spend the money in the future.
Go ahead, Superintendent
Just
Long.
to add, it does go to our bottom line, Trustee Caravella, so it doesn't stay with HSTS, it stays with us. So that's, I don't know if that might be the question too, like, where's that 200,000 go? It stays with us.
Yeah, and then how do we use it?
It's part of our reserve right now. So theoretically, if we didn't have anything else and we just had 200,000 in savings, it would flow down to be our $200,000 reserve, assuming we had nothing else, no other expenditures, ins and outs. So it does stay with the board. So.
Yeah, so right now it would be sitting as part of the operating reserve that we
Okay.
earmarked.
And then another one in that same panel was about the lower admin fees. So or admin costs. Can you give an example how we lowered our admin?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So when we looked at our actual expenses versus our revised estimates, so we saw a decrease in our legal fees. So anytime we're budgeting legal fees, it's sort of what we feel we might incur during the year. And thankfully, we didn't fully utilize the legal fee expense for 2025.
Was it significant?
It was about 200,000. Yeah.
Good.
So there was no, through you, Mr. Chair, there was no like less staff or efficiencies that we saved?
In terms of through you, Mr. Chair. So there are other fluctuations, but when I'm trying to summarize some of the highlights, this is the one that stuck out the most. So in various lines that make up our admin, we would see some savings. Typically on the staffing side, it's more based on vacancies rather than permanent reduction in staff, unless it's something that we have brought forward at budget. And then sometimes there are increases in expenses that were unforeseen at budget time that sort of those pieces kind of net together or offset each other. And the legal fee one was the one that sort of stood out the most and we brought forward to highlight.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Caravella. Up next is Trustee Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Keeping in mind the context of my questions, being a sales and marketing guy. So you have to give me a bit of grace. First, a comment. I know the chair will give me grief for this, but not asking my question right away. Great presentation, first of all. Great work by the accounting staff to bring a surplus budget, but it takes a village to get a surplus. So amazing work from senior staff and administration and everybody, sticking to the goal and tightening down. I know it's been tough. So I think congratulations are due all the way around. Great job by everybody. So now I'll get to my question, two-part question for the first question. So there is 27.1 million in the delayed grant, which the government deems we don't need the money right now for cash flow. So what triggers the release of that? Is that something that happens automatically through your reporting process, or do we have to initiate that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we still struggle with that one. As you recall, a couple of years ago, we were in a different financial situation where we were having compliant deficits. And in those years, we were triggering getting additional release of that money for cash flow purposes from the province. We, at that time, kind of lobbied the province to get that money faster. And they did sort of their, well, what's the cost of your interest on borrowing versus the cost of our interest on borrowing? And because we weren't asking for enough money at the time, said just bear the interest on it. So there's a challenge, but basically they look at what our cash flow needs are and sort of project incorporating the budget that we've also submitted for the upcoming year to determine when they feel like they release some of that. So we don't seem to be able to prompt them to give us the money, but it does occasionally show up based on what we report at financial statements and then what we are projecting as part of our budget.
So is there, this is a three-part question now. So is there a short-term cost to us for cash flow, having to draw on a line of credit or something of that nature?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, there would be. So what we've kind of done the last couple of years is when we have capital projects, we only get funding twice a year for those capital projects. So a lot of times we have to cash flow those projects, which can be quite significant funding. But the province does allow us to borrow for capital projects, and then they will repay us for that interest. So what we've really done, we've struggled with our cash flow because of those things, is we borrow for our capital and then essentially notify the province that here are our debt interest costs, and then the province will pay us for that funding. So it's we just have to kind of strategically earmark sort of what money we're spending for capital or what debt we're incurring for capital versus what we need to cash flow our operation. So that's sort of how we balanced that.
That's a good strategy. So does having the surplus budget and moving that into reserves have any impact on the release, the volume, the amount of that grant in the future?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So anytime our surplus grows, that gets factored into their calculation, and in theory, we would see probably a pullback increase in the future because of it.
Okay. Bit of dirty pool, but that's not on the record, is it? Thank you. So my next question is, we've done a great job on cost reduction or controlling costs relative to the increase in demand. Are there revenue opportunities? So one, increasing the number of students would seem a great source, but then we're limited to where those students live in the schools that they go to. So is there discussions around that where we have capacity? Can we do something to increase the number of students? And maybe the other part of that question then is opportunities for facility rentals. I know that based on some of the sports teams I'm involved with, the rentals seem to be pretty active. Are we at capacity in that area also?
Superintendent Lofts or?
I'll start maybe with the first part. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Trustee Murphy. So some of the good news is we actually are seeing a change in our elementary JKSK numbers going up for the first time in a number of years. That's what we're forecasting for this year. So that's positive. We've been in elementary down the last number of years. Our peak in enrollment was 1920, just before COVID. That was our peak as a system in enrollment. And we're finally now seeing a little bit of an uptick in our elementary JKSK numbers, which is good, better than the alternatives. Provincially, enrollment is down across the province, so that is also something to be aware of. The forecasts across the province are, for various reasons, are provincially going down. We're currently going up, So we've been seeing an increase this past year, increased enrollment. Not the elementary, like I said, the only increase in elementary was at JKSK year over year. But we got to roll through all those other students that are coming in. The JKSK students have to go through the system before we'll really start seeing an overall increase in elementary pool. Secondary, we haven't increasing, but overall as a system, we're still below what our peak was in 2019-20. As far as attracting or additional students, I know fortunately Trustee Superintendent Denolfo is not here, and they've been working, her and the team and a number of superintendents as well, have been doing a lot of open houses and such for JKSK. So it's good to see that there's some fruition to some of the work that's being done in the sense that our numbers have. Regarding your question on, I guess, permitting and use of our schools, maybe I'll hand over to Superintendent Merrick. Yes.
Correct. Mr. Chair. We have been increasing rentals quite a bit, especially in Halton, though. I'd be hesitant to call it revenue, though. We typically charge like cost recovery fees. The province expects us, I mean, we're building schools with provincial dollars, and they're kind of provincial assets. So they expect us to rent that back for what it costs us to run it. We definitely err on the side if we're not going to spend education dollars on subsidizing rental facilities for community groups. So we err on the side of, we're going to maybe making $1 as opposed to losing $1. And depending on what the rental is, if it's an evening rental where we already have staff in the building, it's maybe a little more revenue friendly than on a weekend where it's we have to bring in staff to do that. But I wouldn't say it's a pure revenue generator. We're still they're wearing on our assets. We have increased replacement costs. We also have custodial fees. We have energy, like for providing air conditioning or heating to the building as well for those times. But we do want to provide. We know we have great assets, and actually, the more they use our assets, the more revenue we generate to renew them. The more our students get to have brand new assets in their facilities as well. Our turf fields is a great example of that. We have great turf fields across all of our secondary schools, and those replacements and maintenance on those facilities is paid for by our communities' cost recovery fees. So our students definitely benefit from it, but I wouldn't say it's an entirely, revenue generator. But it does keep our facilities in great shape, and our students benefit from them as well.
Are the rates controlled by the province, or do we?
They provide recommendations for us. They actually have a calculator that you basically a lot of the numbers that Adam and Aaron's team calculates. We populate those numbers into this massive spreadsheet, and it spits out what it suggests the cost should be you charge for those different facilities.
Okay.
But I can tell you, we are looking at many different opportunities to partner with different groups. Municipalities is our primary partner in that. We work with all 4 municipalities in Halton to find different groups and slot them into our facilities. Even now, we have a lot more partnerships with the academy groups as well. So they're looking for spaces as well. We partner with them. And in my time, I've been here for almost 10 years now, or a little over 10 years now. I think our first year I was here, our revenue was around 1.5, 1.6 million. For over 3.5, maybe closer to 3.7, 3.8 now in terms of revenue from community use. So we're filling up our facility, which is great. It ends up being a lot of our students that are using those facilities after hours as well, which is great for them as well.
Just to give you some feedback, the chair and I met with our NPP, and one of his comments was how accommodating we are to the access for our facilities, the quality of our facilities, and how well our board engages with the town and the community so that they can use the asset. So kudos to you and your group.
Thank you. You have 9 seconds left.
I was born in a small town.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Murphy. With that, we shall move on to our next speaker, Vice Chair Rohan Channada. You have the floor.
So thank you to you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Murphy must have snuck a peek at my notes because that's exactly those kind of things I was going to ask. The transparency of the 6.2. So I appreciate that to say, okay, we have a surplus of 6.2, but a couple of them are one-time only deals, right? So the other ones are enrollment and facility rental. So I think I just got my questions answered. But I do want to say to Trustee Carabell and Trustee Murphy, and it's worth saying again, this presentation is the best I've seen since I've been a trustee. it's clear, it's concise, it kind of makes more sense, and that's taken what, 6 or 7 years? So good job. This is a really good presentation for all eyes. So well done on that. So I'm just hoping, I'm the eternal optimist that these two pieces, the enrollment and the facility rentals, will continue. So we'll continue to see that surplus moving forward at the next financial statement next year. So.
Thank you. Question. Any other trustee? Trustee Kennedy. Trustee Kennedy, you have the floor. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering about the major items. You mentioned, I think, if you were to list like the top items, we got a surplus. WSAB, I think, was the largest one.
Yeah.
The collective agreement, we had some of that left over.
Yeah, the bill 120.
What else would you say would be in that if you were in income?
Yeah, so when we were looking from Revolve, we bring from 0 to the 6.2. Summer school was a big component of that. So when we look at our continuing education portfolio, which summer school is a large portion of it, we saw that portfolio increase by 1.6 million over what we had budgeted for revised estimates. So that was a significant increase that hopefully will continue to be sustainable as we're seeing more and more students take summer school classes.
Trustee Kennedy.
Through you, Mr. Chair. What about on the expense side? Any expense to be reduced that contribute to a surplus?
Yeah, so WSIB was the largest one. In terms of sort of the other savings, you know, we did have savings in various areas, but then we also had increases in costs that sort of offset some of those. So some of the things that we had tried to save for at estimates time potentially were offset from by increases in expenses in other areas. So we had savings in facilities, for example, and then we had an increase in snow plowing costs because of the timing of when snow hit last year. So those kind of neutralized themselves. The school budgets piece is the piece that, you know, we're going to take a look at and try and work with the principals to make sure that, you know, every time a budget we hear about providing more funds to the schools. And when we do provide funds, we want to make sure that they are using them to the full amount that we're providing. So, you know, 600,000, when you look across all our schools, it's not a significant amount per school per se. The secondary schools, there was a larger component. So again, sort of reevaluating, and is there sort of a shift in how we allocate funds across the schools is something that we'll be looking forward. We likely won't see it come to fruition for 25, 26 revised, but as we work for 26, 27, which is kind of scary to think about, working with the principals. So we started that principal, vice principal, kind of sub budget committee. So that's one of the things we definitely want to talk to them about is how we can better make sure that they're spending all the money. And if they don't spend the money by the time like school ends, is there a way that centrally we can make bulk orders to supply the schools so that starting in September, schools have additional supplies ready for them. So it's just kind of different strategies that we're looking at there. And then with legal expenses from an admin perspective, it's always a bit of a contingency, right? You're hoping that like you don't have to tap into the full expense. So obviously, anytime we can save money there. But yeah, WSIB was really the driver. And this year, when we looked kind of at our expenses and our revenue, most of the surplus was driven by increases in revenue as opposed to reductions in expenses from what we thought we would come in at revised estimates.
Trustee Kennedy.
Mr. Chair. What about class sizes? So we just released our report today. We were 23.21, which is over again.
Yep.
What kind of savings do you think we result from having, you know, less teachers to student ratio?
Sure. I'll pass it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Thank you through you, sir. Yeah, I want you to be very cognizant of as well. Trustee Kennedy, what is that? There's also other teachers in the classroom with respect to the monitoring as well. So there's that which really impacts the number. I think when you factor in monitoring, it's down to 22.51 or so. So if you look at it from that perspective, another thing to remember too is as a system, this is something that we're trying our best to do at the time, but you don't really find out where we're at until the end of the school year. Unlike elementary, where we can kind of set that compliance much easier, with secondary, we don't find out until well after you can really make any kind of adjustments to anything. So we do our best. We're actually improving our reporting requirements. On the whole, I think it's about 42 or so sections, which is about 7 or so positions. But factor in that we're under expensed or underfunded in spec ed, or under, which is a big part, obviously, of our of where our budget goes. And then factoring in the other amounts that we have with the monitoring and such, I wouldn't say it's a savings. You quoted a savings per se. I wouldn't say it's actually a savings because they are being utilized. We are hiring teachers. It just might not be seen in that calculation.
The sense. But
So, I mean, if we had more students per teacher ratio, we didn't have as many teachers as we kind of should have. So are they using the 23-21 ratio, or are they using the average class size monitoring? That's a new column that wasn't there.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Sorry, I interrupted. I'll let you finish.
So this new blue category, that wasn't there last year. So what number is the ministry using? Is it the green, the 23-21, or is it the monitoring number?
Well, we would ask the ministry to look at that monitoring. We're going to try to look at that monitoring next year as well and change the way that it's incorporate more of our monitoring into the classroom. So that's another way to address it. So instead of having the monitoring classes, you shift that over into the classroom teacher side.
Thank you. Sorry, what is classroom monitoring?
It's yes, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. I can speak to that on behalf of Superintendent Jeff Caldera, who's not here. Monitoring teachers, so generally spec ed teachers and ESS teachers, are those that provide additional supports beyond what the classroom teachers are able to provide. So for spec ed, it'd be a specialist teacher that would be able to work to implement the IEP alongside the classroom teacher. With ESL, sometimes it looks like withdrawal. So they're actually pulling small groups of students out to focus on language development, but also supporting the classroom instruction as well. So those, as Superintendent Loss eloquently said, they're not classroom teachers that are counted in the ratio, but they're vital to student success and to supporting those most vulnerable students.
Yeah, and for you, Mr. Chair, so when we allocate our sections to our secondary schools, those sections that are, then the teacher is now monitoring, like one of those sections, the teacher will be allocated as monitoring. So if we're saying a school has so many sections, and then that school uses some of those sections for monitoring as opposed to the funding was triggered, that's where we see our class sizes go up, but we're giving that school the full allotment of the sections that the funding triggered. So it's something that we have to kind of work with the schools to show them how this is actually like hindering the class sizes, and then figuring out how we balance the needs of those students, and as well as being compliance from the ministry, knowing that they don't recognize those sections as credit courses, so it doesn't count in average.
But so if we are over the average, the ministry decides they're over the average the second year, will we have to pay back any of those funds to the ministry, or potentially pay back teachers, or get fined by the ministry?
So we're going to look through you, Mr. Chair, to Trustee Kennedy. No. And what I mean by that is what it impacts is our eligibility and how much we can spend on our board administration and governance grants. So that's the former term, but essentially for admin costs. So we are well under what we're eligible to spend on our board administration and governance. It's about 20 or so million, and we're well below that. And what the, I don't know, penalty is the right word to use, but what would happen would be we'd have 1% of that $20 million that we couldn't use towards board administration and governance. So about that $200,000, we couldn't spend that. Not that we were not getting clawed back, it's just that we can't spend up to that limit. We're not at that limit, so it won't have an impact on our system. But theoretically, if we were, then we'd have to reduce what we're spending on board administration and governance by $200,000. be our ultimate cost.
Right, Mr. Kennedy?
You, Mr. Chair, do you think this can result in any kind of potential grievance? Like if the ratio for teachers 23-1 we're over, is there a risk of grievance claims here? Because we have a contract.
Well, I'm not going to say that there's always a risk for something, right? But I will say that we do hire the teachers. We have significantly more in spec ed. We know we're overspent in spec ed by a significant amount, which there are teachers and certs and things like that in spec ed as well. So if you look at that in aggregate as a system, we have our teachers. It's just how they've been deployed to the needs of our system. So I think that might be the best way to say it, Trustee Kennedy, is that right now we've been using those monitoring courses. Maybe we'll have to look at how we're deploying some of those monitoring courses going forward. The other problem too is we don't get more funding if we're below. Right. So it's not like if we're at 22, the ministry gives us more funding. We had a few years ago where there was that case and it resulted, we had a deficit, significant deficit as well. So this year is that anomaly, as Adams mentioned. There's WSIB was a big one. We had the 900,000, which is the one and done or so for the administration grant before. So there's a lot of those items of that $6 million that unfortunately we're not going to have next year. So the one good thing is we do have it right now. And if we could always redeploy it, just like similar how we did this year, we brought back, we could always redeploy that in the existing year. It would put us into a deficit, but it can be redeployed. So I don't know if that answers the question there.
I think it does.
Good.
Thank you. Just to you, Mr. Chair, these staffing numbers that Mr. Cross had mentioned, the teachers, you said itinerants are in there. Is that number used for the classroom averages too, itinerants?
No, it's just through you, Mr. Chair. When we're trying to put together that sort of slide to give some context, the sort of the fastest way I could pull it was grouping all the teachers together, so that the itinerants aren't included in our class sizes. But again, those are positions that are teachers within our system that we're allocating funds to cover. So they are teachers, but they're not impacting the class size because there's no credit course attached to that. And that's the key kind of distinguishing piece is you have to be credit courses to count for that class size.
There's no crediting for monitoring.
Yeah. Mr. Chair. I think you might have mentioned a bit before. So we had more enrollment than we expected, 400 or something, and then but we had 19 less teachers. Like, how does that reconcile?
It's because of the itinerary. So if you looked at like our we're still as we are trying to improve our presentations every year. This is something that we can kind of take back. But like when we were looking at our actual teachers component, those numbers went up based on the enrollment. So for example, at our secondary panel, we had 770, 22, 23. We had significant enrollment increases. For 24, 25, that number jumped to 793. So we are adding teachers in the classroom. And what we were trying to do is reduce our itinerants, putting teachers into classrooms. So that sort of has been the strategy the last couple of years. And where we saw that significant reduction in itinerants was in the special education group where they were taking a new approach starting in 24, 25 with those teams rather than kind of itinerants sort of on their own or siloed. So that's sort of where we saw that decrease. So from like a actual teachers in rooms perspective, there was an increase in teachers from compared to last year, but then we saw a decrease from the itinerant side.
Go ahead, Trustee Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Regarding the grade 11 English, we have one offering now. We didn't have it before. Did that in any way change, like increase our revenues because maybe we have less classes, or sorry, reduce our expenses because we have less grade 11 class and have them multiple, or somehow increase revenues by getting not deferred revenue, any money from the ministry that we got in as a result of that decision?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. No, The money for that grade 11, when it relates to Indigenous courses, the large amount that we get for Indigenous education is not driven off of courses. It's driven off our board action plan and the funding that the province provides based on factors within that board action plan and their funding formula. So when we look at like the actual like revenue generation for the classes, it's pretty small. It's between 50 to 80,000 a year, so not really a significant component is being driven off of that class. Prior to the new funding arrangement, it was different. So when you offered those classes, you kind of got credit for class as well as an Indigenous education class. So there was sort of a double incentive, but that has changed with the changing of the funding formula.
Just to kind of add to, if we had a class size below 23, we would get that additional funding for the level class. So with Indigenous funding. So,
minimum eight, I think.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so kind of in that in between period, we would get that funding, but I don't believe we have any.
It wasn't significant. We always encourage the schools to be somewhat strategic, knowing that like if you have a decision to make on classes that are running at a smaller size, like you can run those classes at a smaller size because it will trigger revenue. But yeah, it's not since they changed the formula, it's not driving a lot of the funding from a class perspective.
Thank you. Trustee Kennedy?
Just lastly, the facilities rentals, I think we talked a little bit about facility rentals through Mr. Chair. So where that's increased, I believe Superintendent Herring said it's 3 points 15 million.
Yeah.
Does that money go to the board or does it go to the schools?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of it stays at the board because looking at turfs, for example, so we do have a replacement cost of those that we have to bear as the board. The ministry doesn't provide funding for turfs. So part of the fees that we're collecting that we make above our kind of cost recovery or factored into our cost recovery is knowing that in 10 years' time, we'll have to replace that turf. So a lot of sort of the excess we're seeing be earmarked for replacing those turfs because those costs are going up, right? So the cost of a track and turf now is upwards of $1 million to replace. So definitely need to have some funds available from third-party revenue to be able to replace those turfs.
Just add to that too. There really isn't much, as Superintendent Merritt mentioned before. Like it's pretty prescribed what we can reimbursement for. So thank you. Sorry, that's fine.
Trustee Kennedy, you have 43 seconds.
Thank
you.
Maybe I'll just say lastly, so on the opposite end, for students who use third-party facilities like hockey rinks, pools, I can't think of another one right now. Does the board pay for that completely or at all, or do the students use these school-generated funds, or is it parents, or how does that get paid for?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So we used to provide sort of a supplementation for that as our budgets kind of were tightening. We reduced that so that kind of directed the schools to raise funds through school generated funds when we're kind of setting up those teams to do that. Obviously, now as we've had a couple of years of surpluses, it's things that we will factor in, but we sort of have our senior admin sort of bring their needs to the table and sort of rank the priorities of needs in terms of what we need to address with sort of any funds that we're projecting to have available for new initiatives and other areas. So it's really contingent on what are the pressing needs, and after we've addressed those, are there any excess funds for other items?
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kennedy. I see no other hands up, so this is question time. All trustees have an opportunity for 3 minutes. I shall now close question time, open up debate time for 3 minutes. Trustees, would you like to participate in debate? Please raise your hands. Trustee Kennedy, your name is.
Sorry, just give me one moment. I just have to pull up something. I have a minute.
Yeah.
so I understand, Mr. So there's no more questions
No more questions.
and it's
This debate,
to you. Okay, so just comments, basically.
whether you're in favor or not, whatever. No comment.
And thank you. Glad to see that we have a $6.2 million surplus. Just want to highlight some of how the surplus might have came to be, given our priority to focus on student achievement and well-being. Firstly, as mentioned, the secondary class sizes for the year ending in June were not complying with the Education Act, 23-1, and our average was 23.21. June 2024 was also compliant at 23.18. So now our second year, the average has kind of worsened. And 2 years ago, we didn't have this issue. So I always ask myself, what has changed? In addition, I've spoken with stakeholders who can't seem to understand our formula that our board uses for class size over the past 2 years, nor can I. We did receive ministry funding for a ratio of 23-1, but given we exceeded this ratio by not having enough teachers, the cost savings have been kept with our board and padded our reserves. I wonder if the board will be required to pay some of these cost savings to teachers down the road or back to the ministry or face ministry fines. Also, more importantly, how do larger class sizes that exceed ministry requirement affect student achievement and well-being? I assume this may result in less attention given to students, which can result in less achievement. I hope our director will prioritize this issue and maybe advise trustees and stakeholders how the board will ensure that for this school year, class sizes will be compliant. In addition to larger class sizes, there's some other items I noted. School commissioners, the board used to pay for this expense up until June 2024 and removed it last year. This year, the board has offered to pay half. This is still a large ask for a school to pay this sum of money given their budget size. Lunchroom supervisors for high school, the board used to fund this, but now expects each school to fund itself. Rental facilities, the board used to fund ice time for school hockey teams as well as pool rentals and others. Last year, the board stopped subsidizing this, thus requiring students to pay more. This doesn't seem equitable for many students and parents who may not be able to afford this. Furthermore, when school facilities are rented by third parties, that revenue stays with the board. Transportation, student-generated funds, parents and students are paying for transportation to school sporting events, or parents are having to take time off work to drive them. I think if students are representing the board of the school, this should be a responsibility of the board to pay for. If it's not possible to find school buses, there are private transportation resources we can utilize, as the board has hired private transportation this fiscal year to attend events. Hiring, I would ask the board to prioritize hiring at the school level prior to the board. Recently, staff requested 2 hires in HR that trustees did oppose. And this year, the board hired executive staff, albeit feedback in our school survey, but the lack of EAs and teachers as seen by exceeding the student to teacher class size ratio. And lastly, just given that we have this $6.2 million surplus, I hope the board will start covering some of these expenses back, as we just heard that that's a possibility. Given parents and teachers have had to do more with less, and I hope the board will start reallocating some of the surplus again back and also ensure ministry compliance with the average class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kennedy. Any other trustees would like to debate? Before I call the vote, I just have a comment. Superintendent Lofts, Mr. Cross, Senior Manager Little, and your staff behind the scene. I really want to thank you for burning candles for many, many nights and doing this presentation and coming up with the surplus of $6.2 million. I'm sure you have had lots of discussions with senior staff on how to allocate money and make sure that all our students are taken care of in all our schools across the system. So I really want to thank you, Director Klein, Superintendent Lofts, and the staff behind the scene for presenting this budget. So with that, I shall call the vote on the motion. Can we have the motion in front of us? This motion was moved by Vice Chair Chinada, seconded by Trustee Agnew. So, Trustee, the motion is in front of us. I will call the vote on this item. Trustee Kennedy, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Vice Chair Chinada?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly? Sorry. Trustee Sanders, you have declared conflict on this one?
None of this, no.
Okay, Trustee Sanders?
Abstain.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Adelier?
Abstain.
Trustee Bertram,
In favor.
trustee Hannah,
Abstain.
trustee Carabella,
I will abstain.
trustee Powell,
I'm in favor.
trustee Kennedy voted. I am in favor. So we have 5 in favor, 3 abstentions, none opposed, motion carries. We'll now move on to next action item is policy 10.6, which is policy III-11, hiring and promotion policy, academic and non-academic personnel. This item has come to us from policy. Vice Chair Mohan Chanada, could you please read the motion? Can we have the motion up on screen, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Be it resolved that the Halton Catholic District School Board accept the recommendation of the policy committee that policy II-11, hiring and promotion policy, academic and non-academic personnel be approved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mohan Chanada. So this item has come to us from policy. We need only a mover and it has been moved. Vice Chair Mohan Chanada, I just want to know if this policy was an opportunity to be discussed and debated policy.
Yeah, we actually had a discussion item a couple months ago, and then we just talked about it at the last policy meeting and voted on it to bring it to the board.
Thank you. This item was brought forth by Trustee Carabella. You have concerns on this policy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had to pull it out of the consent agenda. I'm not voting in favor of it, so I can't keep it in the consent agenda. So I would like to explain or just make a statement of why I'm voting in. I oppose it. And I realized there was the debate and I listened to the policy meeting debates. I don't agree with taking out the previous bullet that that included 3 trustees being involved in the hiring process of supervisory officers. And I don't agree with the subsequent amended bullet of reducing to 2 trustees with only an advisory role. Parents expect us to not just be in the room, but represent them where we can and fulfill our governance role as much as we can. I don't agree with voting away our governance rights. Being part of the hiring process of supervisory officers, those closest to the director, does steer the board. And we are the ones who establish the multi-year strategic plan and should have a say in the supervisory officers tasked with carrying it out. That's why I will be voting opposed.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Carabella. And yes, I recollect you were not there at the meeting, so thank you for that. With that, I shall call the vote on item 10.6, hiring and promotion policy, academic and non-academic personnel. Does not need a mover because it has come to us from policy. I shall call the vote on this item. Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Vice Chair Mohan Chanada?
In favor.
Trustee Kelly? Okay. Trustee Saunders, was this your conflict? Conflict, yeah. Okay, thank you. Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Adelier?
In favor.
Trustee Bertram?
Favor.
Trustee Hannah?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
Opposed.
Trustee Powell?
I'm in favor.
Trustee Kennedy? Opposed. So we have 4 in favor, 2 opposed, no abstention. 2 abstentions. Motion, sorry, it's not an abstention. They did not participate in this. They could not participate. So it's 4 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion carries. The policy passes. We shall now move on to our next order of business, item number 11, staff reports, item 11.1, North Milton Catholic Elementary School boundary review. Superintendent Merrick, please present your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We present the North Milton Elementary School boundary review. The North Milton communities are nearing full build out, but there is a number of areas that are seeing high density densification and taking on new development. As such, we expect to see these areas rise in enrollment rise in these areas. The primary drivers for this school boundary review would be these new infill developments. We recently approved a new addition for OLB, so giving us more capacity there. So looking to adjust boundaries to fill up that new capacity at Our Lady of Victory School in Milton. We also have the inability to install portables at Holy Rosary Milton and which is in the north of the city. As such, we had to make sure that we do not exceed the bricks and mortar capacity at Holy Rosary Milton. And then a little further down the road, we know we also have new development coming in Eastern Milton, and we may have to look at how these pressures will impact some of our schools in the northeast of Milton as well. So as such, in your report, we have staff proposing that trustees initiate a school boundary review to address these current and projected enrollments in North Milton. We intend to bring an action report to the next board meeting in December. And actually, if you look through your report as well, in the table there, there's a number of proposed dates. Some of them are still TBD, but the general flow would be that we would start work on the school boundary review in January. Committee work would begin in the winter and spring, continue throughout the winter and spring in 2026, bringing board approvals here in fall 2026, and then have implementation of the proposed hopefully accepted boundaries in fall of 2027.
Thank you, Superintendent Merrick. Trustees, I shall open up the floor. If you have questions, comments for Superintendent Merrick, please raise your hand. Seeing none. Thank you, Superintendent Merrick, for your staff report. We move on to item number 12, information items. 12.1, Director's report. Director Klein, please present your report.
Thank you, Chair. The report is, as always, filled with lots of positive news, things to be proud of in terms of the events at schools and board-wide. But I would be remiss if I did not address a couple of more somber and sad events that transpired in the last 2 weeks. I know trustees are aware of, having updated them and heard from them. For example, Trustee Carabello responded to me today with very kind gesture and very kind words of grace and consolation. So the trustees are aware, and I think the board as a whole are aware of. It's really some of the saddest things that occur over the space of span of our days in education. On November 6th, grade 3 student named Melody Zhu, a student at St. Teresa of Calcutta, passed away after an accident involving a car. Her mother, I believe, is still getting treated, or certainly in hospital, last I heard. Just yesterday, to begin our week, we heard the news from Our Lady of Victory of the death of a kindergarten student named Trudy at Champong. We have many heroes in this board, and many of them are our students, many of them are our staff. And so with ECEs and teachers who administered first aid, with principals and vice principals who took a great leadership role, a pastoral role, as bringing hope and bringing solace to others. From our superintendents, in the case of St. Teresa in Calcutta and OLV, in order, Superintendent Lamontero and Superintendent Skripik, their efforts to go and provide some hope and comfort to those who are suffering, I think were well acknowledged. I think in times of great sadness, sometimes we see the greatness and the really the incarnation of Christ among us, bringing hope to those. So I know that's something that's struck the hearts of all of us, and I wanted to acknowledge that before we began today. And I want to thank all of you for the certainly the prayers that you have extended. And these girls will not be forgotten by their friends, by their families. And we'll pray for God's grace and solace and consolation in the days and weeks and months to come. And certainly we pray for their families as well for the devastating losses. So not to be too clunky in this, we'll move to areas where our board I just want to highlight some things in terms of our priorities of achieving, believing, belonging, and becoming haven't been highlighted or should be highlighted in these reports. We'll start with HVAC training lab at Notre Dame. Superintendent Del Sordo and I 2 weeks ago had the opportunity to visit Notre Dame. And we know that every one of our high schools, because of the talent of their staff and because of certainly marketing and savvy and strategy, have a distinct illuminated pathways that they might want to feature. And there was something shining out at Notre Dame when we were there. And it goes to point out again, the creativity and the passion of staff who were there. In this case, a couple of teachers we would highlight. This was, I don't think there was a ribbon cutting per se, but there was the opportunity to celebrate and the opening of this HVAC training lab at that point. It's part of a joint venture with Niagara and Halton Skills Trades Academy. It's a new lab, and again, it shows partnerships that we consistently try to make with various and sundry around our region. And it allows then students access to industry grade equipment and training that supports some gas licensing, manufacturing in the SHSM programs, and the landscaping construction SHSM program, which again is kind of a feature if you go to a Notre Dame and walk through their greenhouse and see what's going on there. It's a powerful example of, again, strategizing, collaboration, innovation, and stick-to-itiveness. And I saw a teacher, for instance, who was leading the charge in terms of honing his own skills on his own time, again, modeling for his students the passion and the dedication that it takes to move forward in trades and in every other line of work. And we're very, very grateful for that. Faith, of course, is at the core of everything we do. We began a new Faith in Action series, just highlighting students and staff across our board who bring Catholic faith to life. It's a good opportunity to, again, show again the myriad of staff who do great work of being Christ for others in the board. And if you were to check our website, you would see a beautiful array of photos of, when you look through them, you go, oh, that's a custodian, or that's somebody who's working in the office, that's a teacher, that's an administrator. And I would think that these are all things that you would want to look at. The next couple of slides focus on Assumption. We decided that as we go through the year, we'll focus on a certain family of schools. And Assumption was either they drew the short straw or they're the first ones off the bat. I'll talk about, first of all, this Leading with Love at Assumption Secondary School. In this endeavor, student ambassadors work by mentoring some of their peers, building community through faith and action projects. These students lead truly by example. They foster inclusion, and they create a welcoming school environment for their other comrades and their peers. They also are connected to the Ontario Educational Leadership Centre training. And through that, they've deepened their understanding of leadership as not only a skill, but it's also a bit of a vocation, and one that involves great courage and other virtues. If you were to go to Assumption, check the links there. You can see greater explanations and photos that might eliminate this. Anything we do with Assumption over the next couple of slides, feel free to visit the website. A breakfast club. many of our schools have breakfast clubs, but I thought we'd feature the Assumption Breakfast Club. And that brings the school community together every morning. And there are volunteers of staff, volunteers of students who help provide some nutritious meals for anyone who would walk through the doorway and want something to get them started and get them focused on the day. And again, obviously, this reflects our priorities and our goals and our values, but it also reflects the values of our families and the dedication of our students. Heroes of Hope. The year of Jubilee is winding down. It will be ending as we enter into Epiphany, heading toward the Feast of Epiphany after Christmas. And we know that hope has been the focus of a lot of what we do at this board as well. And so inspired by the Diocese Jubilee campaign, we've worked to highlight those who somehow exemplify hope wherever they are. As I said earlier, if you were to go into the board website and scroll down, you will see that for each and every one of our sites and schools, that there is someone who reflects humility and hope, and someone who is valued in an extra special way by their staff. If you were to do that, you would see when it went to the CEC that someone who was selected by their peers and is in this very room, Rosie Di Pietro, is the honoree for our and of course, since the focus was humility, Rosie will not talk about herself. You get in there. Bullying awareness. Bullying awareness as a day initially and then as a week probably goes back to nearly 20 years ago, at least 15 years ago, as my recollection is. There's something that the province of Ontario said that within this middle-ish, the third week of November would be a priority. And no less for us here at Halton Catholic. Because of that, we highlight for our students, whether they are kindergartens or all the way up through grade 12, again, reminding them what bullying is and is not. I would have to say my own observations of that, the understanding by our families and our staff and our students has grown tremendously over the years. Obviously, we're constantly going back to reteach some of these things, but in terms of what it is, and very often what it isn't. There are some bad things in life, but they're not necessarily bullying, and that's not to say there isn't bullying. There are resources, again, available for all our sites. Again, the bullying awareness prevention kit. Teachers are able to avail themselves of this and use that in terms of lessons, in terms of work with their students. And of course, you're aware that if you were to go onto our website, if you go to each school's website, you can find through the parent portal the reporting tool that also includes bullying incidents. And there's a whole little area for learning again about the spectrum of those that might be events might be thought of as bullying, and again, what is and isn't, and what are some strategies to empower students beyond bullying. Fun fact, probably since 2020, if not a little earlier, there has been $0 distributed by the Ministry of Education in any form whatsoever here within boards or in terms of organizations that used to help facilitate leadership development provincially at all. It's gone. So that means that the importance of leadership, and we know that the leadership is important. It's rooted in some of our key documents that we espouse here in our Catholic schools. Key one would be renewing the promise. That leadership development is important. To look at the leadership that I noted earlier in terms of the tragedies that befell a couple of schools, the people that responded. Are leaders born? Yes, but they're also developed and they're also honed. Their courage is stoked. They are protected and they are armed to do the work that they need to do as it. And again, just to quote one of the wonderful quotes from Renewing the Promise that really comes up at the last slide, but I'll jump to it right now. If we are to form joyful disciples who transform the world through faith, hope, and love, that comes from Renewing the Promise, then we do have an obligation to dedicate resources and expertise to that endeavor. So I just want to highlight a couple of things, and Superintendent Nar is not here right now, but this board has dedicated itself to nurturing leadership through the years, and no less right now. So I'll talk a bit about the fact that the one I want to start with, you just click over the leadership. Go back, please. Thank you. So just two I want to highlight. There are many levels of our leadership development, from people tapping each other on the shoulders to say, I think you'd make a great department head or something else, to things that are a little more organized. And these are two pathways I want to talk to you a bit about. The leadership journey is one for anyone on this board, any employee who might be thinking in some way of developing leadership skills. And so it's a series of workshops. We have people in this room that help run some of them or contribute to them. And for leaders who are discerning, it is an opportunity for them to think about what is leadership in the Catholic educational environment. What do we mean by that? What are some templates for leadership development or some resources that are key to that? The Ontario Leadership Framework, although a little dated, is still something that we use to help guide that. Models of different leadership, looking at things like emotional intelligence and other, I guess, psychological profiles, looking at things like conflict resolution, difficult conversations, etc. Whether or not somebody becomes a principal or something formal in their leadership, it matters not, because that leadership, those skills, I think you'd agree, would shine out in different venues. The next is a Catholic leadership program, which is a little more formal. This is for teaching staff, so specifically for our teachers, who might be looking at positions of added responsibility. And those would be ones where they would still be teachers in the sense of being part of OECTA and the teaching contingent. Could be department heads, could be consultants. Again, those who take the raw materials of a new program, a new curriculum, and help ensure that it gains legs and gains traction and that people understand it, to ones we would think about more traditionally in terms of added responsibility, namely our principals and our vice principals. It's a 2-year program. It's focusing on relationship building, education, again, discernment, which is a word we use really most often in the Catholic and the Christian environment. It has practicum involved in it as well. And for each of these people, there are mentors that are assigned to them. So for instance, if you're thinking of looking at administration, there would be someone in administration who would be there to try and help mentor you, and vice versa for other roles as well, because many of us have an idea of what we're getting into. But it's always good to have somebody by your side to give you a sense of what the realities are, and to maybe have your back when the weather gets a little rough in it. These are two examples, but we've got many more examples of how we again develop leadership here. And again, that is not something that the province has chosen to really invest in. And I think us making the decision here is very, very important. So those are the things I wanted to share. And again, we started off with a somber note, but we again shared some of the moments of light that are always around us. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Director Klein, for sharing your report. Trustees, do we have any questions or comments for Director Klein? Please raise your hand. Saying none, thank you, Director Klein, for presenting your report. Sure there's a lot more happening in schools, which you had to compress the report, but thank you so much for doing the report, and thanks to all the staff in schools that talked about. So really appreciate the work being done in our schools. Thank you. With that, we shall now move on to our next order of business, which is item number 12.2, 2024-25 Audit Committee Annual Report to the Ministry. Superintendent Lofts, please present your report.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, please find attached the information report for trustee review.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sorry, yeah, that wasn't,
It's a capital.
it's a capital report, Mr. Chair, 12.2.
12.2 says, okay.
The capital projects report as of August 31st.
Something wrong.
That was in the, that was actually session.
There is something wrong here. Give me a second. Let me just check the was.
Is that Jen?
Chair. This November.
So one of your cars. I just, I don't know.
No, he's my favorite.
We share a piece day. But it's just, I just, like, then you have them at your head. So. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's not a bad idea. Might help.
You're welcome.
Okay, trustees. Excuse the error in my documents here. So it's 12.2 capital projects report. Superintendent Lofts, please present the report.
You, Mr. Chair, please find attached information report updating HCDSB's capital projects for the period ending August 31st, 2025. Projects are tracking as anticipated. The report submission submitted as information, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Lofts. Trustees, do we have any questions or comments for Superintendent Lofts? Trustee Saunders, your hand up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, Superintendent, I noticed, I'm just looking at the summary on Appendix A, and it appears that some of our projects are going over budget. And I'm just wondering if you sort of give me an idea of what the nature of this is, what's happening as it, and what issues we're running.
Superintendent Lofts.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you speaking to Trustee Saunders? I see the one for 56,000, is that?
Yeah, and there's another one's down, it says renewal projects, and looks like we're minus 1.1, 1.7. And then there's over to the right, there's additional funding that we seem to be dipping into, and some contingency funding. And then some the professional fees we're seeing, that was an issue. So I'm just wondering if you explain what I'm seeing here in the report and what it represents.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the far right column, like the lower over where there's additional allocation of professional fees and
Sure.
budgets that have been approved before. So we've had them there. Now we're just allocating it out. I think that's.
When we design these projects, we actually pool all the professional fees and the contingencies together. It helps us reduce the amount of contingency we have to hold then. So we're kind of risk pooling across the projects. And then when we pull it out of that pool of professional fees and contingencies, we put it into the project. So that's why it shows up as being a negative. So we're pulling it out of the pool, using the project. So they were approved as part of the project.
Okay.
It's just showing us using them for that specific project.
Okay, it looks like in the one St. Joseph Pakai, looks like we're a little bit in the hole on that. Is there anything?
Yeah, it's done though. It's like we were to finish off some of the furniture there, we ended up going a little bit over, but we're done now. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So there's any more questions? So trustees, any further questions? Superintendent Lofts, thanks for presenting this capital projects report. We shall now move on to 12.3. 12.3 is 2024-25 Treasurer's Annual Investment Report. Superintendent Lofts, please present your report.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, attached is the Treasurer's Annual Investment Report as prescribed. The board used short-term GICs to help get some additional revenue from cash balances throughout the year, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Lofts. Trustees, any questions, comments for Superintendent Lofts? Seeing none, thank you, Superintendent Lofts, for presenting the annual investment report for 2024-25. Our next item is 12.4 construction report. Superintendent Merrick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we have the construction report for November. not a lot of progress in this month, fiscal approvals. And we should see more new activity in the new year, but waiting on drafting the subdivision approval, site plan approval, and then finally building permit. You can see some lovely silk fence there though, and the black felt fence there that went up this month. So more progress to come in the new year.
Thank you, Superintendent Murray. Trustees, any questions for Superintendent Murray? Seeing none, thank you, Superintendent Murray. Our next order of business is miscellaneous information, item number 13, student trustees update. Student trustees, please present your report.
Okay, I'll start and then we'll go to Pierre, then we'll go to Bellini. If Bellini's not back, then I'll speak first. So starting with believing. Believing has always been a foundational pillar of our Catholic school community. This month in our Faith in Action subcommittee released an Instagram post for All Saints Day. We'll discuss the importance of the solemn celebration and the core values that define our Catholic identity. We'll continue to feature the post until All Saints Day. Additionally, our Senate is working to make Senate meetings more spiritually meaningful by incorporating a variety of reflective prayers rather than reciting the Our Father each time. In conclusion, this month we have taken the time to reflect and observe of All Souls Day, and continue to honor our Catholic faith by upholding the sacredness and intentionality of praying within our school community.
So now we're just going to move into the belonging portion of our update. We'll get up here. So recently our major focus within our student senate is kind of doing kind of a leadership development sort of series. So every single meeting we try to focus on a different aspect of leadership to focus on essentially. And my fellow trustees and I recently joined the Halton Catholic District School Board Mental Health and Wellbeing Advocacy Committee. And we participated in our first meeting in which we discussed our priorities for the year. And so this is something that really inspired us. It was a really great meeting. We got to network with a lot of amazing mental health needs with the HCDSB. And so we actually asked a few of them to come and take part or run one of these leadership development sessions at our upcoming Senate meeting, which is actually tomorrow. So they're going to be doing a workshop on mental health and well-being for our senators, and also how they can advance mental health and well-being initiatives within their school. Additionally, we've also been working on our truth and reconciliation aspect, and we hope in the future, most likely at our December meeting, to run a little truth and reconciliation leadership workshop by the HCDSB's Indigenous Advisor, Ms. Sherry Sable. So next up, we do have becoming, just to finish off. So you can see a little bit.
Maya did skip achieving at the beginning. So we'll be doing achieving first before becoming. Apologies for any confusion. So achieving is and always will be a vital part of our school board and all others. So the Student Achievement and Leadership Student Senate Subcommittee is going to be choosing their first proposal at their meeting next Tuesday. We'll be sure to update you when it does occur. Note that this board was written last Tuesday, so it's actually going to be happening later today. As you know from last board meeting, Superintendent Del Sordo and Director Klein were going to give a presentation, and now they did give a wonderful presentation on the multi-year strategic plan to our student senators. The hope is that the presentation will allow for senators to make proposals connecting to the plan more easily. Our secretaries and social media reps have also been chosen, and these are going to be creating general Senate meeting notes and helping the student trustees on the Senate social media respectively. Additionally, Valini also sort of spoke to this already, but we're excited for joint projects with the Student Senate and the Mental Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee. I won't go into too much detail, but we will be having they will be presenting at our General Senate meeting tomorrow. It's also worth noting that multiple secondary schools have given academic words within the last week. And finally, our Indigenous Education Advisor, Ms. Sable, will be attending the Senate meeting on December 10th. We hope to continue to increase the amount and importance of land acknowledgements used across the board in the future. I'm sure you hear this a lot, but these acknowledgements, they're not a box to be checked off. They contain within them the legacy of an entire people. And while I'd love to go into more detail, leaving these reports till the end when everyone's tired does tend to make them rather brief. So I'll end it there, and Bellini can take you to becoming.
Thanks so much, Ropier. My apologies for skipping over you earlier. So we, of course, have a little blurb there about becoming. And so Director Klein and Superintendent Del Sordo kind of kicked off our leadership session. So that was an amazing development. One thing I would like to talk about is that this past weekend, my fellow trustees and I got the amazing opportunity to attend the OSTA ACO Fall General Meeting. So for those who don't know already, OSTA is the Ontario Student Trustees Association. And so we essentially get to meet and connect with a variety of student trustees from boards all over the province and discuss pertinent issues within our board, to discuss like educational politics, things like that, and also participate in leadership development sessions and professional development sessions. And it was truly an amazing conference, and one that really kind of shapes our idea of how we plan to utilize our role as trustee in the coming months. I will say that we are incredibly grateful for this opportunity. It is so empowering to be able to see the eloquence and passion of leaders across Ontario. I and my fellow trustees, we're truly so happy to have this opportunity. It's an amazing one. And so some of the amazing sessions we took part in, one of them was a consent education session. And this one really stood out to me because it kind of offered a really creative take on an otherwise very serious topic, but it really solidified the seriousness of this topic through art and creativity. So I actually did bring in the activity we did at that session. So they had an artist come in and they did kind of like little collage making activity. So they brought in a bunch of art supplies and we got to create like our own individualized collages that kind of showcased what consent means to us. And again, that's a really serious and important topic, but it was a really beautiful activity that helped solidify the concept for us. And so in our upcoming Senate meetings, we actually hope to kind of replicate this activity and share it with our senators because we think it would be an amazing opportunity for them to get the same the opportunity as us to experience this amazing activity. So that's just a little recap. We got to take part in a variety of sessions, and that kind of finishes off our report. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, student trustees, for bringing this report. Trustees, any comments or questions for our students? Saying none. Thank you, student trustees, for bringing a report. As usual, it's good to hear what's happening in our schools. So thank you for all the work that you do. With that, we shall move on to item number 13.2, OCSTA update. Vice Chair Rohan Chunada, you have a verbal update.
I do, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things. I am still touting a pre-registration for the OXTA Trustee Seminar on January the 16th and 17th. Anyone that still wants to register, please get that in by December the 5th. Save ourselves some money. I've had a couple of meetings just yesterday on some of the OXTA director subcommittees I'm on. So I'll bring an update in the December meeting. And I'm super excited. I've never done this before. As your director at OXTA and as a director, I was asked to participate in Lobby Day. So next week, Tuesday, November the 24th with FACE, we'll be down at Queen's Park lobbying for Catholic education. So I'm super excited to attend, and I'll be even more excited to debrief when I get back and kind of deliver the whole day and what it looked like and any information I can bring back to you. That's it for you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for all that you do at CST as the regional director. Trustees, any questions, comments?
Great.
None. Thank you once again. We'll move on to 13.3 OCSTA 2026 AGM resolutions. So trustees have received. I'll start it off and then I'll pass it off to Vice Chair. This is one of the OCSTA items that we always participate in for the past several years, and we have had really good success with resolutions which have been accepted and moved forward. And as we know, resolutions have helped in various ways, funding or improvements. So this year too, I'm hoping that we can start the process right away. And like last year, let's invite out the trustees and we can form a committee and we can talk about it. Vice Chair, we'll talk to you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And it's really over the years, I found it to be a really collaborative effort between staff trustees, fellow trustees, and it's a lot of work. We are at the stage where Augusta will be submitting a financial brief. It has to be approved by the directors. Once we get that, I can bring it back to the board because there's also resolutions in there already that'll go forth. So we don't want to duplicate, but just listening to this fine report and leadership, zero monies, that might be a resolution in the making right there and then. So stay tuned for something like that. And please just feel free to send any kind of ideas you may have on what we need to do provincially to lobby to the government for what we need, because we still do need a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Stay tuned. As we come out, we do. Any questions on the OCS2 resolutions? If not, then we shall move on to item 7.2, I believe. That's the one which trustee Carabella requested to remove correspondence. So we are at item 7. Was correspondence?
Yes.
So it's under item number 14. And that was item number 7.2.7 under consent agenda. Okay, so trustee Carabella?
Yes, thank you. I just took it out of correspondence, took it out of consent agenda, so I had a question about it. It's about the student and family support offices. I was wondering if we've received any direction on how to implement this going forward, as they're expecting this to happen.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's just hot off the press, but I don't see anything, but I'll pass it on to Director Klein.
Thank you, Chair. And Trustee Carabella, yeah, it is still warm from press. I know there's been no action. I do know of some directors that met with the minister last week, and I don't think there's any, direction in terms of how this exactly will manifest itself. So I think there'll be some discussion around clearly for 5 boards. The clock is ticking in terms of they have to have something lined up by June or January the 19th. For the other boards, this one included, by the end of March, there needs to be some report just outlining how that would be established by September 1st. So even then, you could still probably have a bit of wet paint on it as you're doing that. So I would expect this to be a conversation, probably at Augusta, but it'd be a conversation amongst directors too about what might be best practices around it. I would think that one board and another board and this board might approach it differently depending on all sorts of things that are contextual. But it's just initial thoughts around it. But the minister was, gave clarity in terms of these are the look-fors in it, and obviously it has to be rooted in PPM 170. But no, it is, that was Thursday mid-morning when this kind of hit us.
Thank you, Mr. Carabella.
Follow-up would be, so this, as I'm reading it, I'm just understanding it as being a supervisory officer.
Well, it says a supervisory, sorry to interrupt, a supervisory officer will lead it. So how that looks in terms of how that's led by a supervisory officer, I think is up to our imaginations or creativity.
Because I'm also wondering if there are any explanations about the funding that would accompany this.
I believe Superintendent Lofts kind of threw a bit of a low pitch to see if someone would swing at it at the ministry. How'd that go?
Not as of right now. There's through Mr. Chair to Trustee Carabella. As it stands right now, there is no additional.
A look of surprise is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustees, any questions on that? Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Trustee Carabella. We now move on to item number 15, open question period. Director Klein, have you received any questions of the question period?
No, we have not, Chair.
Thank you, Director Klein. Item number 16, in camera. We do not have to go into camera. We shall now move on to resolution regarding absentees. We have all trustees present today, so we do not need to excuse any trustees. Finally, we move on to item number 18, adjournment and closing prayer. May I have a motion to adjourn? Trustee Saunders moves for a seconder. Trustee Agnew. All in favor? Be opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Trustee Kelly, could you please lead us in closing prayer?
So as Director I mentioned, we lost two students in our team. Melanie Sue, a third grade student from St. Teresa, and Trudy Champagne, a kindergarten student from our meeting. In such tragic news, I would ask if everyone can join me in a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. I would now like to dedicate this prayer to Melody and Trudy. So if you could all join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Almighty God, your power brings us birth, and your providence guides our lives. Send your Holy Spirit to bring light to the darkness, comfort to the weary, and peace to the families and communities of Melody Sue and Trudy and Champagne. O Lord, through your mercy, grant these children eternal peace in your kingdom, and let perpetual light shine upon them and their families. Renew in them your sustaining strength, for we believe that there is nothing in all creation that can separate us from your love. In Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Trustee Kelly. Thanks for a great meeting. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night.